There is a scene near the end of regular show where Rigby stands in a gymnasium wearing a cap and gown. He is a raccoon. He is 23 years old, which in this show means he has been 23 for nearly 7 years of real time. He is surrounded by teenagers. He is shorter than all of them, and he is graduating from high school for the first time. The show does not play this for laughs. Not entirely. There is comedy in the image, certainly, in the absurdity of this tiny raccoon standing among human adolescents, clutching a diploma he should have earned a decade ago. But the camera holds on his face, and what you see there is not a punchline. What you see is relief. What you see is a person who has spent his entire life telling himself that none of this matters, finally confronting the fact that it does, that it always did, that every joke he made about not caring was a wall he built between himself and the terrifying possibility that he might try and still fail. That is what this video is about. Not Rigby the slacker, not Rigby the funny one, not Rigby the character who exists to cause problems so that Mordecai can solve them. Not the Rigby that 1,000 internet posts have reduced to a meme, a reaction image, a shorthand for laziness. The real Rigby, the one the show spent 8 seasons and 244 episodes building, breaking, and rebuilding. This is about the nihilism of Rigby. The genuine, structural, load-bearing nihilism that holds his entire personality together for most of the show. The belief, stated and unstated, performed and internalized, that nothing matters, that effort is a trap, that caring is a weakness, and that the safest way to move through the world is to want nothing, so that nothing can be taken from you. And this is about how the show, slowly, over 8 seasons, dismantles that nihilism piece by piece, not by arguing with it, not by giving Rigby a speech about the importance of trying, but by putting him in situations where not caring costs him something real, where the wall he built stops protecting him and starts trapping him, where the nihilism stops being a philosophy and reveals itself as what it always was, a scar. Welcome to Velvo. Get comfortable, settle in, turn the lights down low. This is going to be a long one, and that is by design. If you have not subscribed yet, it really does help us keep making these. Hit that button and let us get into it. Regular show premiered on Cartoon Network on September 6, 2010. It was created by J.G. Quintel, who based the show on 2 short films he made in college, both of which were considerably more adult than anything Cartoon Network would typically air. The premise was deceptively simple. 2 friends in their 20s work as groundskeepers at a park. They do not want to work. They want to play video games, eat junk food, and avoid responsibility. And every time they try to slack off, something supernatural happens that turns their minor irresponsibility into a life-threatening crisis. The show ran for 8 seasons, 244 episodes, and ended on January 16, 2017. It won a Primetime Emmy in 2012 for Outstanding Short-Format Animated Program. It was, by every measurable standard, a success. But the thing that keeps people coming back to regular show, years after it ended, is not the supernatural chaos. It is not the monsters or the interdimensional portals or the sentient video games. It is the characters. Specifically, it is the way the show used those characters to tell a story about what it means to grow up when you are not sure you want to. And no character embodies that story more completely than Rigby. Rigby is a brown raccoon. He stands around 3 feet tall. He does not wear clothes for most of the series, which the show treats as both unremarkable and vaguely telling. His best friend is Mordecai, a blue jay who is nearly twice his height, and together they occupy the lowest rung of the park hierarchy, answering to Benson, a sentient gumball machine who manages the grounds with the desperate energy of a man who knows his employees will destroy everything he builds. On the surface, Rigby is the comic relief. He is loud, he is impulsive, he is selfish in ways that are usually funny and occasionally genuinely cruel. He starts fights he cannot win. He makes bets he cannot pay. He breaks things and blames other people. He is, in the language of television criticism, the id to Mordecai's ego, the chaos agent, the one who makes the mess so the story has something to clean up. But that reading misses something. It misses the engine underneath all of that behavior. Because Rigby does not act the way he does because he is stupid. He is not stupid. The show makes this clear in dozens of small moments across its run. Rigby is clever. He is resourceful. He can be strategic when he wants to be. He simply does not want to be. And the question the show spends 8 seasons answering is, why? The answer, when you trace it through every Rigby-focused episode, every throwaway line about his past, every moment where the comedy drops away and something raw and uncomfortable peers through, is this. Rigby is not lazy because he does not care. Rigby is lazy because he is afraid. He is afraid that if he tries his hardest will not be good enough. He is afraid that the world has already decided what he is, and effort will only confirm it. He is afraid of being seen, not the version of himself he performs, the loud one, the funny one, the one who does not give a damn, the real one, the small one, the one who dropped out of high school and lied about it, the one whose younger brother is taller, more successful, and more beloved, the one who sabotaged his best friend's future because he could not bear to be left behind. That fear is the engine. The nihilism is just the exhaust. And if you have ever felt that fear, if you have ever avoided something, not because you did not care, but because you cared too much, if you have ever performed indifference as a shield against the possibility that your best might not be enough, then you already know Rigby. You know him better than the show's other fans do, better than the people who watch him and see only the comedy, because you recognize the architecture. You know what the walls are made of. You know why they were built. You know the specific, exhausting, never-ending labor of maintaining a performance of not caring when every part of you is screaming that you do. Regular Show is a cartoon about a raccoon and a blue jay who work at a park. It is also, beneath that surface, one of the most precise and compassionate depictions of anxiety-driven avoidance ever produced in any medium. And the fact that it accomplishes this while also being one of the funniest animated comedies of its era is the kind of creative achievement that does not get recognized often enough. The comedy is not a distraction from the depth. The comedy is the mechanism through which the depth is delivered. You laugh because it is funny. You stay because it is true. And what makes Regular Show remarkable is that it does not solve this problem with a single episode. There is no moment where Rigby has a revelation and suddenly becomes a different person. The show understands that the kind of fear Rigby carries does not evaporate. It erodes, slowly, through relationships that refuse to let him hide, through consequences that pile up until ignoring them becomes harder than facing them, through love, specifically, through a quiet, patient woman named Eileen who sees through every wall he builds and likes what she finds on the other side. This is the story of that erosion, section by section, episode by episode, season by season, the nihilism of Rigby, and the long, difficult, beautiful process of outgrowing it. So settle in, let the screen go dark, let the room get quiet. This story does not require your full attention. It requires your presence. Just be here, just listen. The way Eileen listened, the way the show listened, the way everyone who ever loved Rigby had to listen, past the noise, and past the jokes, and past the performance, to the person hiding underneath, saying something so quiet you could only hear it if you were willing to be patient. Be patient, the story is worth it. Let us start at the beginning. Not the beginning of the show, but the beginning of Rigby. The moment the show first tells you exactly who he is, before you have the context to understand what it means. The first season of Regular Show is 12 episodes long. It aired between September 6th and November 22nd of 2010, and it operates almost entirely as a proof of concept. The episodes are short, the stakes are local, and the characters exist more as archetypes than as people. Mordecai is the responsible one who is not actually that responsible. Rigby is the irresponsible one who is genuinely, dangerously irresponsible. Benson yells, Skips fixes things, Pops is sweet and confused. The formula works because the escalation is funny. Two guys skip their chores, and somehow a demon shows up. But even in this early, formula-driven season, the show plants seeds about Rigby that will not bloom for years. The pilot episode, The Power, which aired on September 6, 2010, as the very first episode of the series, is ostensibly about Mordecai and Rigby finding a magic keyboard that can make people do whatever they want. They use it to avoid getting in trouble for punching a hole in the wall. The episode is fast, funny, and mostly concerned with establishing the show's tone, that anything can happen, and it usually does. But watch Rigby in that episode. Watch how quickly he escalates. Mordecai wants to use the keyboard to fix the wall. Rigby wants to use it to send their boss to the moon. The gap between those two impulses is the entire character. Mordecai wants to solve the problem. Rigby wants to destroy the context in which the problem exists. If there is no boss, there is no job. If there is no job, there are no expectations. If there are no expectations, there is no failure. That is not laziness. That is nihilism in its purest, most functional form. The elimination of all structures that could be used to measure you. And then there is Rigby's Body, Season 1, Episode 11. It aired on November 15, 2010. The premise is this. The park's snack bar is offering free food to employees, and Mordecai and Rigby go on a binge. Mordecai stops. Rigby does not. He keeps eating until his body, literally, physically separates from him and walks away. Read that again. His body leaves him because he refused to stop consuming, refused to listen to any signal that said enough. His own physical form decides it would rather exist without him. The show plays this as slapstick, and it works as slapstick. Rigby chasing his own body around the park is genuinely funny. But underneath the comedy, the show is telling you something about who Rigby is at the most fundamental level. He is a person at war with limits. Not because he is brave enough to push past them, but because acknowledging that limits exist means acknowledging that he exists within a system that can evaluate him, and he would rather lose his body than submit to evaluation. The episode resolves with Rigby in a full-body cast, forced to work at the snack bar for 6 months to pay off the food he consumed. The consequence is real, the damage is physical, and Rigby learns absolutely nothing. That is not a failure of writing. That is the show telling you, in its first season, that this character's problems are not the kind that get solved by a single bad experience. They are structural. They are foundational. They are built into the way he understands himself and his place in the world. And the show is patient enough to let that be true for a long time before it starts to change. The episode Dawn, Season 1, Episode 10, which aired on November 8, 2010, is the first time regular show pulls back the curtain on Rigby's inner life, and what it reveals is devastating if you know where to look. The setup is simple. The park is being audited because Pops has been paying taxes with lollipops. Mordecai suggests bringing in Rigby's brother, Don, who is an accountant. Rigby reacts to this suggestion the way most people react to a death threat. He does not want Don anywhere near his life. He does not want Don anywhere near his friends. He does not want Don to exist, and the intensity of that feeling is the first sign that something is deeply wrong. When Don arrives, the reason becomes clear. Don is everything Rigby is not. He is tall. He is charming. He is competent. He is warm. He remembers people's names. He gives hugs. Everyone loves him immediately, effortlessly, in the way that people love golden retrievers and summer days. And Don is Rigby's younger brother, not his older brother, his younger brother, the person who came after him, the person who should, by the logic of birth order, be looking up to Rigby. Instead, everyone assumes Don is the older one. Everyone assumes Rigby is the little brother, and the show lingers on that assumption long enough for you to feel its weight. Because for Rigby, this is not a misunderstanding. This is a verdict. The world has looked at both of them and decided which one matters more, and it did not pick him. The episode could end there, and it would already be one of the most revealing character studies in the show's run. But it goes further. When the truth comes out, when Rigby finally confronts Don about all of this, Don's response is not what anyone expects. He is not oblivious. He is not dismissive. He apologizes. He tells Rigby that he has spent his entire life trying to be like him, that he copies Rigby's hairstyle, that he stopped wearing clothes because Rigby stopped wearing clothes and he thought it was cool, that the person Rigby has been jealous of has been, this entire time, jealous of him. And Rigby cannot process this. He literally cannot. The show gives him a moment where he could absorb this information, where he could let it change the story he tells himself about who he is. And he nearly cannot do it. Because the nihilism is not just a mood. It is a defense mechanism. If nothing matters and nobody cares and the world has already decided you are the lesser version, then you do not have to try. You do not have to risk. You do not have to sit with the terrifying possibility that the person you have been resenting has been admiring you the entire time, which would mean the wall you built was never protecting you from the world. It was protecting you from yourself. Rigby does eventually give Don a hug. It is framed as the episode's emotional climax, and it works. but it is important to notice what happens after. The show does not treat this as a turning point. Rigby does not become a different person. The next episode, he is back to his usual behavior, dodging work, picking fights, pretending nothing matters. Because one hug does not undo years of self-protective nihilism. The show knows this. The show respects the depth of the problem enough to let it persist. And the Dawn episode reveals something else about the architecture of Rigby's nihilism that is easy to miss. The nihilism is not just a shield against the world's judgment. It is a shield against love. Because Dawn's revelation, the revelation that he has been admiring Rigby this entire time, is an act of love. It is a brother saying, "I see you, and I want to be like you." And Rigby's near inability to receive it tells you how deep the damage goes. The nihilism has made him allergic to being valued. Not because he does not want to be valued. He wants it desperately. But the wanting is so intense and so unprotected that he has built the nihilism specifically to keep it contained. If nothing matters, then being valued does not matter. And if being valued does not matter, then the hunger for it, the aching, bottomless hunger for someone to look at him and say you are enough, can be safely ignored. Dawn breaks through that containment for exactly one moment. One hug, one brief, physical connection where the walls come down and Rigby allows himself to be loved by his brother. And then the walls go back up. Because one moment of love is not enough to undo years of self-imposed starvation. The hunger does not disappear because you eat one meal. It takes sustained nourishment, day after day, to convince a starving person that the food is real and that it will keep coming. And Rigby, at this point in the series, does not believe the food is real. He does not believe anyone will keep feeding him. He believes the love is temporary, that the approval is conditional, that the moment of warmth will be followed by the usual cold, and the only way to survive the cold is to pretend you do not need the warmth. That is what the nihilism protects, not a philosophical position, a wound, a hunger so deep and so old that the person carrying it has forgotten it is there. They just feel the numbness where the hunger used to be, and call it not caring. That patience is one of regular show's greatest narrative strengths, and it is the thing that makes Rigby's eventual growth feel earned rather than imposed. The show does not heal Rigby's wound in a single episode. It does not even acknowledge the wound directly for most of its run. It simply places Rigby in situations where the wound is visible, where the numbness thins and the hunger shows through, and it lets those moments accumulate. Each one is small, each one is temporary, each one is followed by a return to the performance. But each one also leaves a mark, a hairline crack in the nihilism that was not there before. And the cracks accumulate too. And eventually, there are so many cracks that the whole structure begins to shift, begins to groan, begins to reveal what it was always hiding. A person who wants to be loved, a person who wants to matter, a person who wants, more than anything in the world, to try. The show gives Rigby all of those things, but it makes him wait for them. It makes him earn them. Not through heroics or grand gestures, but through the hardest kind of earning there is. The kind where you sit with your pain long enough to understand it, and then you choose, freely and without guarantee, to let it go. There is a version of Rigby that exists only in comparison to Mordecai, and for most of the show's early seasons, that version is the one the audience sees most clearly. Rigby as the sidekick, Rigby as the bad influence, Rigby as the friend who holds Mordecai back. And there is truth in that reading, but it misses something critical about the way the show constructs their friendship, because the dynamic between Mordecai and Rigby is not a simple hierarchy of maturity. It is a codependency built on complementary fears. Mordecai is afraid of action. He overthinks. He hesitates. He cannot talk to Margaret without turning into a stammering wreck. He knows what he should do, and he cannot do it. Rigby is afraid of ambition. He does not think enough. He acts on impulse. He can talk to anyone because he does not care what they think of him, or at least he has convinced himself he does not care. He does not know what he should do, and he has built an entire identity around not needing to know. They need each other, not in the way that healthy friendships need each other, where both people grow, but in the way that coping mechanisms need each other, where both people stay exactly the same. Mordecai needs Rigby because Rigby makes inaction feel like a lifestyle choice rather than a failure. Rigby needs Mordecai because Mordecai makes slacking off feel like a shared decision rather than a personal deficiency. Together, they create a closed system where neither one has to confront the thing that scares them most. More smarter, Season 2, Episode 24, which aired on June 13, 2011, is the episode that cracks this dynamic open for the first time. The premise is straightforward. Mordecai teases Rigby for not having a high school diploma. This is the first time the show explicitly reveals that Rigby dropped out of high school, and the way it drops this information is telling. It does not come through a dramatic confession or a serious conversation. It comes through mockery. Mordecai uses it as ammunition in a petty argument. And Rigby's response is not shame. It is not embarrassment. It is rage. He tries to go back to school. He falls asleep in class and gets kicked out. He tries to get a diploma online. He does not know the difference between a square and a rectangle. The show plays this for comedy, and it is funny, but it is also the first time you see the full shape of Rigby's trap. He does not have a diploma because he did not try. He cannot get a diploma now because he never learned how to try. The nihilism was not a response to failure. The nihilism prevented him from ever developing the tools he would need to succeed. It ate the foundation before the house was built. Rigby's solution in the episode is to drink a chemical compound that makes him smarter. It works, temporarily. He becomes articulate, analytical, capable, and then he and Mordecai get into a competition about who can be smarter, both drinking more and more of the compound until they transcend normal intelligence entirely and start speaking in equations and theoretical physics. The show pushes this to its absurd conclusion, as it always does, but the subtext is clear. When Rigby tries to improve himself through effort, he fails. When he tries to skip the effort through a shortcut, the shortcut consumes him. There is no easy path from where he is to where he would need to be, and the show is honest enough to let that be the takeaway. But here is the thing that More Smarter reveals, that the show will spend years exploring. Rigby does not drop out of high school because he is too stupid to graduate. The show never says that. What the show says, through action and implication rather than exposition, is that Rigby drops out because he is too afraid to be measured. A diploma is a measurement. A grade is a measurement. Every assignment, every test, every class participation point is someone looking at you and saying, "This is what you are worth." And for Rigby, who has already decided that he is worth less than his brother, less than his best friend, less than everyone around him, the act of being measured is not a neutral experience. It is a confirmation of the thing he fears most. So he opts out. He drops out. He tells himself that school does not matter, that diplomas are for suckers, that the people who care about grades are the real losers. And the nihilism calcifies around that decision like scar tissue around a wound, protecting it from examination, insulating it from the kind of honest scrutiny that might reveal it for what it actually is. Not a philosophy, a flinch. It's Time, Season 2, Episode 2, which aired on January 3rd, 2011, is an episode that most people remember for its surreal visuals and its dark ending, but it is also one of the most important episodes for understanding the specific texture of Rigby's nihilism. Because this is the episode where you see what happens when Rigby's fear of being less than Mordecai collides with Mordecai's romantic interest in Margaret. The setup is this. Mordecai wants to go see a movie with Margaret. Rigby wants Mordecai to go see a horror movie with him instead. When Mordecai chooses Margaret, Rigby does not accept this. He does not pout. He does not complain. He retaliates. He asks Margaret out himself, not because he is interested in Margaret, not because he wants to date her, but because he cannot stand the idea that Mordecai has something he does not. The nihilism that tells Rigby nothing matters has a corollary that the show explores throughout its run. If nothing matters, then the things other people care about are fair game. Other people's feelings, other people's relationships, other people's ambitions, none of it deserves protection, because none of it is real. The only thing that is real is the immediate desire, and Rigby's immediate desire is to not feel small. The episode escalates, as regular show episodes do, into a surreal confrontation in a time void. But the emotional core is grounded in something very specific and very uncomfortable. Rigby keeps taunting Mordecai. He keeps pushing. He knows exactly where to press to cause the most pain, and he presses there with the precision of someone who has spent years studying his best friend's vulnerabilities. This is not the behavior of someone who does not care. This is the behavior of someone who cares so much about the hierarchy between them that he will burn the friendship to the ground rather than accept a position below Mordecai in any category. Rigby dies in this episode. Mordecai shoves him in the time void, and he falls, and he ceases to exist. The show resets this through time manipulation, because it is a cartoon and consequences are flexible, but the image stays. Rigby pushed so hard, needed so badly to not be less than, that he pushed himself off the edge of existence. And the show does not comment on this. It does not add a lesson. It does not have a character say what just happened here is concerning. It just moves on, because regular show trusts its audience to carry the weight of what they saw, even if Rigby himself refuses to. That refusal is the nihilism at work, the refusal to sit with consequences, the refusal to connect cause and effect, the refusal to look at the wreckage and say, I did this. Because admitting you caused damage means admitting you have the power to cause damage. And admitting you have power means admitting you have responsibility. And responsibility is the thing Rigby has spent his entire life running from. Not because he is incapable of it, because he is terrified of what happens when responsible people fail. Irresponsible people who fail can shrug. They can say they were not trying. They can point to their lack of effort as evidence that the failure does not count. But responsible people who fail have no shelter. They tried their best, and their best was not enough, and that is a kind of exposure Rigby cannot endure. So he does not try, he does not care, he does not matter. That is the mantra, that is the shield, that is the nihilism. And the show lets him hold it for years before it starts, gently and then firmly, prying it from his hands. There is a dimension of Rigby's nihilism that the show explores with particular subtlety across its early seasons, and it is worth pausing on because it is the dimension that connects most directly to the viewer, the dimension of time. Not the time voids and time machines that the show deploys as plot devices, but the ordinary, relentless passage of time as experienced by a person who is not doing anything with it. Rigby is 23 years old at the start of the show. He is, functionally, 23 years old at the end of the show, 7 years of real time later. The show does not age its characters. It freezes them. And that freeze, while a convention of animated television, becomes, in regular show's hands, a statement about what stagnation feels like from the inside. When you are stagnating, time does not feel like it is passing. Every day feels the same as the last. The seasons change outside your window, but inside the room where you are sitting, where you are playing video games and eating snacks and avoiding the phone call and ignoring the to-do list, nothing changes. The light is the same, the noise is the same. The feeling in your chest, that low, persistent, barely noticeable weight that you have learned to ignore, is the same. And because nothing changes, you lose track of time. You look up one day and a year has passed. Then 2. Then 5. And the distance between where you are and where you might have been, the distance that the nihilism told you did not exist, is so wide now that looking at it directly is physically painful. Rigby does not look at it. The show does not make him look at it. Not directly, not until the later seasons when the looking becomes unavoidable. But the show lets the audience see it. It lets you watch a character stay the same for season after season and feel the weight of that sameness accumulate. It lets you count the episodes. 100, 150, 200. That is a lot of time to spend on a trampoline. That is a lot of mornings waking up in the same room, in the same job, in the same patterns. That is a lot of life not lived. The show never says this. It never lectures. It never has a character turn to the camera and say, do you see how much time he is wasting? It just lets the time pass. And the passing of the time, the sheer volume of it, is its own argument. An argument the nihilism cannot answer. Because the nihilism says nothing matters, but the nihilism cannot say where the years went. The nihilism can dismiss any single moment as insignificant, but it cannot dismiss the accumulation of moments. The weight of unlived time is the one thing the nihilism cannot shrug off. And the show knows this, and it uses it. And by the time Rigby finally decides to change, you feel not just the change but the relief. The physical, almost bodily relief of a person who stopped holding still and started moving again. Regular Show was created by J.G. Quintel, who based the show on 2 short films he made while studying character animation at the California Institute of the Arts. The original films were considerably more adult than the show that eventually aired on Cartoon Network, which tells you something about the creative process behind Regular Show. It was conceived as a story about adult aimlessness and then filtered through the conventions of children's animation. The result is a show that operates on 2 levels simultaneously. On the surface, It is a bright, fast, funny cartoon about a raccoon and a blue jay getting into trouble. Underneath, it is one of the most sustained meditations on young adult stagnation, fear, and growth in any medium. Quintel has spoken in interviews about the relationship between the show's mundane premise and its supernatural escalation, and what he describes is essentially the thesis of Rigby's entire arc. The idea is that ordinary life contains within it the potential for extraordinary transformation. You just have to be paying attention. You just have to be willing to see the extraordinary in the ordinary, and you have to be willing to participate. That willingness is the thing Rigby lacks and slowly acquires. It is the thing the nihilism suppresses and love revives. It is the simplest, most fundamental human capacity, the capacity to participate in your own life, and regular show treats it with the seriousness it deserves. Because participating is not easy. Not when you have been watching from the sidelines for years. Not when you have built an identity around not participating. Not when every instinct, every fear, every scar tells you that participating means risking, and risking means failing, and failing means being seen for what you really are. Participating, for Rigby, is the bravest thing he does. Braver than fighting monsters. Braver than going to space. Braver than any of the supernatural confrontations that fill the show's 244 episodes. Because the monsters can be defeated with punches and tricks and cosmic intervention. But participating in your own life, opening yourself to judgment, to failure, to the terrible possibility that you might try and still not be enough, that requires something no supernatural shortcut can provide. It requires the willingness to be seen, fully, without the costume, without the performance, without the walls. That is the journey. That is the arc. That is the thing this video has been tracing, from the pilot to the finale, from the magic keyboard to the graduation podium. The story of a person who was afraid to be seen, and a world that saw him anyway, and the slow, beautiful, painful process of learning to stand in the light. Do Me a Solid, Season 2, Episode 18, which aired on May 2nd, 2011, is the episode that shows what Rigby's nihilism looks like when it is pointed directly at someone else's happiness. And it is one of the hardest episodes to watch if you are paying attention to what is actually happening beneath the comedy. The premise is a transaction. Mordecai wants to go on a double date with Margaret, but he needs Rigby to come along as Eileen's date. Rigby agrees, but only if Mordecai owes him 10 solids, instant favors that Rigby can call in at any time, for anything. Mordecai, desperate, agrees, and Rigby immediately uses those solids to sabotage the date. Think about what that actually means. Strip away the cartoon logic and the comedy framing. Rigby agreed to help his best friend pursue the person Mordecai cares about most. He extracted a price for that help, and then he used the currency of that price to systematically destroy the thing he was supposed to be helping with. He did not do this because the date was inconvenient. He did not do this because he had somewhere else to be. He did this because Mordecai wanting something, genuinely wanting something, threatened the equilibrium of their friendship. If Mordecai gets Margaret, Mordecai has something Rigby does not have. If Mordecai has something Rigby does not have, then Mordecai is ahead. If Mordecai is ahead, then the comfortable fiction that they are both slackers, both going nowhere, both perfectly content with their lack of ambition, collapses. And Rigby cannot let it collapse. Because if Mordecai is growing, and Rigby is not, then Rigby is not staying still. He is falling behind. And falling behind is the thing the nihilism was built to prevent. The episode also introduces Eileen in a significant way. Eileen is a mole who works at a coffee shop. She is quiet, she is smart, she likes Rigby. And Rigby treats her with a dismissiveness that borders on cruelty. He does not want to be on a date with her. He does not want her attention. He does not want the implication that someone might see something in him worth caring about, because caring about someone who cares about you is an investment, and investments can lose value, and loss is the thing Rigby has organized his entire life to avoid. The show does not punish Rigby for this behavior in any permanent way. The episode ends, the status quo resets, and life continues. But the show has done something more important than punishment. It has shown you the shape of the problem. Rigby's nihilism is not passive. It is not a lack of engagement. It is an active force that seeks out and destroys anything that might require him to grow. It finds happiness in other people and undermines it. It finds potential in himself and smothers it. It finds connection and poisons it. Not because Rigby is evil, because Rigby is scared. And scared people, when they are scared enough for long enough, start to see every good thing as a threat. That is the version of Rigby the show spends its first 2 seasons building. Not a villain, not a clown. A young man buried so deep inside his own defense mechanisms that he cannot tell the difference between protection and imprisonment anymore. The walls he built to keep the world out are the same walls that keep him in. And the show is only getting started. There is something else happening in the early seasons that most people process as slapstick, but which, if you slow down and examine it, reveals the specific mechanics of how Rigby's nihilism operates in real time. The show does not just tell you that Rigby avoids effort. It shows you, in episode after episode, the precise sequence of thoughts and impulses that carry him from avoiding effort to creating catastrophe. And the pattern, once you see it, is always the same. Death Punchies is Season 1, Episode 4. It aired on September 27, 2010. Mordecai and Rigby want to play a video game called Dig Champs. They disagree on who should be player 1. Mordecai suggests they settle it with Punchies, a game where you take turns hitting each other until one person gives up. Mordecai wins immediately, as he always does, because he is bigger and stronger. Rigby, humiliated, runs off and finds an ad for something called Death Kwon-do, a martial arts school that teaches lethal techniques to anyone willing to learn them. Here is the pattern. Step 1. Rigby encounters a situation where he is measured against someone else and found wanting. Step 2. Instead of accepting the measurement or working to improve within the existing system, he seeks a shortcut that lets him bypass the measurement entirely. Step 3. The shortcut escalates beyond his control and creates a situation far worse than the original problem. Step 4. The crisis is resolved through external intervention, and Rigby returns to exactly where he started, having learned nothing except that shortcuts exist and can be found. This is not a comedy formula. It is a psychological blueprint, and it repeats so consistently across the show's early seasons that it functions almost as a diagnostic tool. Every time Rigby encounters a situation where he might be evaluated, judged, or ranked, the same sequence activates. He does not freeze. He does not retreat. He overreacts. He reaches for something, anything, that lets him skip the evaluation. The magic keyboard from The Power, the Death Kwon-do from Death Punchies, the intelligence chemical from More Smarter, the Playco Armboy from Over the Top. Each one is a different flavor of the same impulse. Give me something that makes the measurement irrelevant, that lets me win without the winning meaning anything, that protects me from the verdict without requiring me to change. And the show, by playing this pattern for laughs, does something almost sneaky. It makes you complicit in the nihilism. You laugh at the escalation. You enjoy the chaos. You do not stop to think about what is driving it, because the comedy is good enough that you do not need to. And that is exactly how the nihilism works for Rigby too. The performance of not caring is entertaining enough, to him and to everyone around him, that nobody stops to ask why he needs to perform it so loudly. Rage Against the TV is an early episode that encapsulates this dynamic perfectly. Mordecai and Rigby are trying to beat a video game. The TV malfunctions. Instead of fixing the problem or finding a different activity, they escalate. They keep escalating. The situation becomes dangerous, then life-threatening, then cosmically significant. And at no point does either of them stop and say, "This is about a video game. We could just turn it off." They cannot turn it off. Not because the TV will not let them, though the show provides that as a literal plot mechanism. Because turning it off would mean admitting that the thing they are fighting for does not matter. And if this thing does not matter, then what are they doing? What are any of their days about? What is the point of waking up and going to work and eating snacks and playing games if none of it matters? The escalation is not insanity. The escalation is the answer to a question they cannot afford to ask. They make the trivial enormous, because the alternative is admitting that the enormous is trivial, and that admission would crack the foundation of their entire existence. For Mordecai, this is a temporary condition. He has ambitions, buried and unspoken but real. He wants to be an artist. He wants to be with Margaret. He has a future he is too scared to pursue but too honest to fully abandon. The escalation, for Mordecai, is a detour. For Rigby, it is the destination. The escalation is the only place where Rigby feels fully alive, because it is the only context where his energy, his recklessness, his willingness to do insane things without thinking is an asset rather than a liability. In a crisis, Rigby is useful. In a normal day, Rigby is a problem. The nihilism does not just protect him from measurement. It creates the conditions under which he can be valuable. That is a devastating insight, and the show never states it directly. It simply shows you, over and over, a character who is most himself when everything is on fire, and lets you draw the conclusion. Rigby does not just avoid the ordinary, he sabotages the ordinary, because the ordinary is where his deficiencies are visible, and the extraordinary is where his strange, chaotic, irresponsible energy becomes the thing that saves everyone. The problem, of course, is that you cannot live in the extraordinary. The fire goes out, the monster is defeated, the time void closes, and you are back in the park, with a rake and a boss who is yelling and a best friend who is taller than you, and a brother who is better than you, and a diploma you do not have, and a future you gave away. You are back in the ordinary, where the nihilism is the only thing standing between you and the full weight of what you are. And the ordinary, for Rigby, is unbearable. Not because it is painful, but because it is quiet. And in the quiet, you can hear the things the noise was covering up. Temp Check is Season 2, Episode 15. The premise is straightforward. Rigby hires a temp worker to do his share of the park work while he slacks off. The temp, a man named Doug Shablowski, is initially unremarkable. He does the work. He follows instructions. He is, in every way that matters, a functional version of the employee Rigby refuses to be. And then Doug starts copying Rigby. He adopts his mannerisms, his voice, his appearance. He slowly transforms into a physical duplicate of Rigby, until the park employees cannot tell them apart. The episode builds to a confrontation where everyone must figure out which Rigby is the real one. And the test that reveals the truth is simple. One of them hugs Mordecai. That is Doug. Because the real Rigby would never hug Mordecai. Not in public. Not in a way that could be witnessed and interpreted as affection. The nihilism extends even to physical touch. Even to the most basic expressions of care. Rigby has built so many walls that the absence of walls becomes the proof of identity. He is the one who does not reach out. He is the one who keeps the distance. He is the one who would rather be mistaken for an imposter than admit, through a hug, that he loves his best friend. The show plays this as a punchline, and it lands. But underneath the punchline is something that hurts. Rigby's defining characteristic, the thing that separates the real him from a copy, is his refusal to show affection. That is what makes him him, not his humor, or his energy, or his creativity. His walls, his distance, his inability to close the gap between what he feels and what he shows. The nihilism has become so integral to his identity that it is, literally, the only thing that makes him unique. And that is terrifying, because it means that if Rigby ever outgrows the nihilism, if he ever becomes someone who hugs his friends and says what he means and cares openly about things, he will become, by the show's own logic, unrecognizable. He will have to become a new person, not a better version of himself, because the self he knows is built on the nihilism. A genuinely new person, constructed from whatever is left when the defense mechanisms come down. The show is asking, without saying it, whether Rigby is brave enough to become someone he does not recognize. And it will take 5 more seasons to answer that question. There is a moment in Season 2 that does not get discussed nearly enough, and it is the moment that reveals the most dangerous feature of Rigby's nihilism. It is not a dramatic scene. It is not a confrontation. It is a death, Rigby's death, and the fact that it barely registers, for Rigby or for the show, tells you everything about where this character is in his journey. Over the Top is Season 2, Episode 21. It aired on May 23, 2011. The premise is an arm wrestling competition between Rigby and Skips, the park's immortal Yeti handyman. Rigby cannot beat Skips. Nobody can beat Skips. This is established fact within the show's world, but Rigby does not accept it. He does not accept it not because he believes he can win, but because losing is intolerable. Losing is measurement. Losing is someone else being better than you in a way that can be verified and witnessed. So Rigby cheats. He uses a device called a Playco Arm Boy, a mechanical arm attachment that gives him superhuman strength. He straps it on, challenges Skips again, and for a moment, he wins. And then Skips, enraged at being cheated, slams Rigby through a table, and Rigby dies. State that plainly. A character cheated in a trivial competition because he could not tolerate losing, and the consequence was death. The show does not frame it as tragedy. It frames it as a problem to be solved. Skips must now go to the underworld and arm wrestle Death himself to win Rigby's soul back. The episode becomes an action comedy set piece, and Skips succeeds, and Rigby returns to life, and nobody talks about it again. But think about the psychology of what happened before the death. Rigby could have simply not arm wrestled Skips. Nobody was forcing him. The competition was voluntary. He chose to enter it, knowing he could not win, and then he chose to cheat rather than lose. The nihilist who claims nothing matters could not let a meaningless arm wrestling match go, because the nihilism was never about believing things do not matter. It was about controlling which things are allowed to matter. Rigby cannot let Skips be stronger than him in a witnessed, public setting, because that witness, that public knowledge, adds another data point to the story Rigby tells about himself. Another piece of evidence that he is less than. Another measurement that confirms the verdict. The cheating is not about winning. It is about refusing to be measured honestly. And that is the most corrosive form of nihilism the show depicts. Not the passive kind, where you sit on the couch and let the world pass you by. The active kind. The kind that reaches into a situation and distorts it so that the truth cannot emerge. The kind that says, if the game cannot be won on my terms, then the game itself must be corrupted. Because a corrupted game produces no valid results, and no valid results means no valid judgments, and no valid judgments means the verdict Rigby fears can never be officially rendered. He would rather die than be accurately measured, and the show knows this. The show puts it right there on screen, and then it moves on, because Rigby moves on, because moving on without processing is the thing Rigby does better than anything else in the world. Season 3 begins on September 19, 2011, and it is the season where regular show starts to deepen. The episodes get longer, the continuity gets tighter, and the characters start to accumulate histories that matter. For Rigby, Season 3 is the season where the show begins to explore not just what his nihilism does, but where it came from. The answer, as it turns out, involves high school, volleyball, and a grudge that will eventually threaten the entire space-time continuum. But before the show gets to the origin story, it gives us something quieter and more revealing. It gives us Excellent. Excellent is Season 3, Episode 17. It aired on February 27, 2012, and it won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Short-Format Animated Program. It is one of the most beloved episodes of the entire series. And it is, at its core, a story about what Rigby's nihilism costs the people around him. The setup is this. A restaurant offers a challenge. Eat an entire 12-egg omelet in under an hour, and you win a trucker hat that says, "I'm excellent." That is the prize. A hat. A novelty hat with a pun on it. And Rigby wants it more than he has wanted almost anything the show has depicted up to this point. This is important. Rigby, the character who claims nothing matters, who treats effort as a personal insult, who has built his entire identity around not wanting things, wants this hat. And he wants it badly enough to attempt a challenge that his body literally cannot handle. Rigby is allergic to eggs. The show has never mentioned this before. Nobody knows, possibly not even Rigby. He eats the omelet, and he collapses, and he falls into a coma. The rest of the episode belongs to Mordecai. Mordecai, who teases Rigby constantly, who complains about him, who sometimes treats him as an inconvenience, watches his best friend fall into a coma over a trucker hat, and he decides to win the hat for him, not because the hat matters, because Rigby matters, because somewhere underneath all the frustration and the codependency and the constant low-grade warfare of their friendship, Mordecai loves Rigby. And when Rigby is lying in a hospital bed, unconscious, unable to perform the version of himself that pushes people away, that love becomes visible. Mordecai goes through the challenge. He faces a series of escalating trials, including a final test involving a knight who guards the hats and has killed at least one previous challenger. Mordecai chooses the correct hat. He brings it back to the hospital. He places it on Rigby's head, and Rigby wakes up. The show does not explain why the hat wakes him up. It does not need to. The hat is not medicine. The hat is proof. Proof that someone went through something difficult for him. Proof that someone thought he was worth fighting for. Proof that someone saw past the nihilism and the selfishness and the noise and found something underneath that deserved to have a stupid trucker hat placed on its head while it slept in a hospital. And here is the thing about this episode that nobody talks about. Rigby put himself in the coma. He knew, on some level, that the omelet was dangerous. He did it anyway, because the hat represented something he could not articulate. A small, meaningless victory in a life full of meaningful losses. A trophy for a competition nobody cared about, which made it the only kind of trophy Rigby could safely want. Because if you want something nobody else values, you cannot be judged for failing to get it. And if you get it, the victory belongs entirely to you. That is the nihilism at its most paradoxical. Rigby does not want things that matter, because wanting things that matter opens you to judgment. But he does want things. He wants them desperately. He just restricts his wanting to things the world has agreed are trivial. A hat, a video game high score, the last slice of pizza. These are the stakes Rigby allows himself. These are the arenas where he permits himself to care. And when even these tiny stakes put him in a coma, the message is clear. It is not the caring that is dangerous. It is the pretending you do not care that eats you alive. Before we continue, if you are enjoying this, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The third season also introduces a pattern that will become critical to understanding Rigby's trajectory. The slow, almost invisible expansion of his world beyond Mordecai. In the first 2 seasons, Rigby exists almost entirely in relation to his best friend. His identity is defined by the contrast. He is the shorter one, the lazier one, the less responsible one. Remove Mordecai, and Rigby barely exists as a character. He is a satellite in orbit around a slightly larger satellite, and neither of them is orbiting anything meaningful. But Season 3 begins to give Rigby relationships that are his own. Not just Eileen, though Eileen is the most important of them. Skips, the immortal Yeti who serves as the park's handyman, an unofficial problem solver, begins to function as something Rigby does not have anywhere else in his life. A mentor, not a formal one, not the kind who gives speeches about believing in yourself. The kind who fixes things, quietly, without fanfare, and expects you to watch and learn. The relationship between Rigby and Skips is interesting because it is built on competence rather than affection. Skips does not coddle Rigby. He does not lower his standards. He simply includes Rigby in the process of solving problems. And by including him, he communicates something that nobody else in Rigby's life has communicated clearly. You are capable of contributing, not capable of being entertained, not capable of being tolerated, capable of contributing, of being useful, of having something to offer that is not a joke or a mess. Rigby does not know what to do with this. The nihilism has no framework for usefulness. If nothing matters, then being useful is meaningless. If effort is a trap, then contribution is a risk. But Skips does not ask Rigby to believe in himself. He asks Rigby to hold a wrench, to carry a box, to stand here and push that button when I tell you to push it. Small, concrete, achievable tasks that cannot be failed in any meaningful way, but that create, through repetition, the faintest possible template for competence. This is the show being brilliant without announcing it. The grand gestures, the speeches, the dramatic moments of revelation, those are for other characters and other shows. Rigby's growth begins with holding a wrench. It begins with being asked to do something simple and being trusted to do it. It begins with someone treating him as if he is capable and waiting to see if he believes them. He does not believe them. Not yet. Not for a long time. But the wrench is in his hand, and that is a start. Bet to be Blonde is Season 3, Episode 2. It aired on September 26, 2011. The premise involves a bet between Mordecai and Rigby over a video game, in which the loser has to adopt the hairstyle of the winning player's character. Rigby cheats. He disconnects Mordecai's controller while pretending to be sick, guaranteeing his victory. Mordecai is forced to dye his hair blonde and endures Rigby's relentless mockery, including the nickname Blondecai. The cheating is the pattern again, the same blueprint. Rigby cannot tolerate the possibility of losing, so he corrupts the game. But this episode adds a new dimension to the pattern, because the consequence of the cheating is not supernatural chaos. It is social displacement. Mordecai, newly blonde, gets recruited by a group of blonde men who form a tight-knit social circle. Mordecai starts spending time with them instead of Rigby. And Rigby, who cheated to win, who rigged the game to ensure his superiority, discovers that winning cost him the only thing he actually values. The blonde group turns out to be a cult, because this is regular show and everything escalates. But the emotional core of the episode is sharper than the plot suggests. Rigby's cheating did not just change Mordecai's hair, it pushed Mordecai toward other people. It created distance, and that distance terrifies Rigby far more than losing a video game ever could. Because the nihilism can handle losing. The nihilism cannot handle abandonment. Losing is just a measurement. Abandonment is an erasure. It is the world saying you are not needed here. And for Rigby, who has spent his life performing the belief that he does not need the world, the possibility that the world might agree is catastrophic. This fear of abandonment is the thread that connects every Rigby episode across the show's run. It is the fear that drove him to forge Mordecai's rejection letter. It is the fear that makes him sabotage Mordecai's dates. It is the fear that keeps him at the park, in a job he does not care about, in a life he did not choose, because leaving would mean being alone, and being alone would mean being left with himself, and being left with himself is the thing Rigby avoids more desperately than anything else in the world. The nihilism is not about the universe being meaningless. The nihilism is about Rigby being afraid that without the people around him, he is meaningless. That without Mordecai and the park and the chaos that fills his days, there is nothing underneath. No core, no self. Just a small raccoon who dropped out of high school and has been performing confidence ever since. Seasons 4 and 5 of Regular Show, which aired between October 1st, 2012 and August 14th, 2014, represent the show at its most confident and its most complicated. The episode count is high, the quality is remarkably consistent, and the character work deepens in ways that the earlier seasons only hinted at. For Rigby, these are the seasons of deepening. The nihilism is no longer being introduced or established. It is being tested, pressed, examined from new angles. Wall Buddy is Season 5, Episode 5. It aired on September 23, 2013. Mordecai and Rigby are told to clean their room. Rigby, in what the show presents as a comedic refusal, acquires a device called the Wall Buddy that splits one room into two, creating separate spaces so he does not have to deal with Mordecai's side of the mess. When that is not enough, he uses the device to shove all of his own junk onto Mordecai's side. Strip the comedy away and describe what is happening. Two friends share a room. One of them is asked to take responsibility for his own space. Instead of doing so, he acquires a tool that lets him push his problems onto the other person. When confronted, he does not apologize. He does not compromise. He escalates, using the tool repeatedly and destructively until the entire park is damaged. That is Rigby's relationship with responsibility in miniature. He does not ignore it. He does not forget about it. He actively, creatively, energetically avoids it. He puts more effort into avoiding the work than the work would have required. The nihilism is not laziness. Laziness is passive. This is active. This is effortful. Rigby works harder at not working than most people work at working. And the energy he expends on avoidance is evidence of something the nihilism does not want you to see. He is not incapable. He is redirected. The capacity for effort is there. It has always been there. It is just pointing in the wrong direction, toward escape instead of engagement, toward avoidance instead of accomplishment. The show never loses sight of this. It never lets Rigby be simply lazy. It always shows the effort behind the laziness, the creativity behind the destruction, the intelligence behind the refusal to learn. And in doing so, it makes his eventual growth feel not like a character becoming a different person, but like a character finally pointing in the right direction. And this is the place to talk about the park itself, because the park is not just a setting, it is a character. It is, in many ways, the most important character in the show, because it is the container that holds all of these people together while they figure out who they are. The park is a dead-end job. This is not subtext. This is text. Mordecai and Rigby are groundskeepers at a municipal park. They rake leaves. They set up chairs. They mow grass. These are not careers. They are not stepping stones. They are tasks that exist to fill time, and the show makes no attempt to pretend otherwise. Benson does not inspire his employees with visions of growth. Pops does not reward ambition. Mr. Maillard does not care about the park's mission. The park exists. The workers exist inside it, and the days pass. For Rigby, the park is both a prison and a sanctuary. It is a prison because it keeps him small. He cannot grow at the park. There is no upward trajectory. There is no promotion to aspire to, no skill to develop, no professional identity to build. The park takes whatever you are when you arrive and preserves it like a specimen in amber. You can be there for years and leave exactly the same as when you came, but it is also a sanctuary because the absence of growth is the absence of measurement. Nobody at the park is going to evaluate Rigby's potential. Nobody is going to give him a performance review that says you could be more. The park asks nothing of him except presence. Show up, do the minimum, survive the day. That is enough. And for Rigby, who has organized his entire life around the avoidance of measurement, the park is perfect. It is a place where the nihilism is rewarded, where not caring is not just tolerated, but functionally indistinguishable from the standard of performance. The show is telling you something about dead-end jobs that is uncomfortable and true. Dead-end jobs are not just economic realities. They are psychological environments. They create a specific emotional climate, one in which ambition atrophies and contentment calcifies, and the line between choosing to stay and being unable to leave becomes so blurred that you stop noticing it. Rigby does not stay at the park because he loves the work. He stays because the park never asks him to be more than he is. And being asked to be more, to try harder, to reach further, is the thing that terrifies him most. But the park is also where Rigby meets the people who will eventually dismantle his nihilism. It is where he meets Eileen, through Margaret's coffee shop visits. It is where he builds his relationship with Skips. It is where he and Benson have their conversation in the locked office. It is where every supernatural crisis forces him to confront something he is avoiding. The sanctuary is also the laboratory. The place where nothing is supposed to change is the place where everything does. This is the show's deepest irony, and it is the one that gives the entire series its name. Regular Show, a show about regular life, a show about the ordinary. And the ordinary, the show argues across 244 episodes, is where all the extraordinary stuff happens. Not in the supernatural crises, though those are fun. In the spaces between them. In the conversations on the porch. In the shared silences after the monster is defeated. In the slow accumulation of days that look the same but are not the same. Because the people living them are changing, even when they do not know it. Rigby does not know he is changing during the middle seasons. He thinks he is the same. He thinks the nihilism is intact. He thinks the walls are holding. And the show lets him think that. Because the show understands that the most important changes are the ones you do not notice until they are already done. You do not feel yourself growing. You feel yourself staying the same, and then one day you react differently to something. You make a choice you would not have made a year ago. You catch yourself caring about something you used to dismiss, and you realize, with a mixture of surprise and discomfort, and something that might be relief, that you are not who you were. You are someone new, someone you did not choose to become, someone you became by accident, through the slow, persistent pressure of being loved by people who saw through you. That is what the park does to Rigby. It does not change him. It holds him in place long enough for other people to change him. The park is the crucible. The people are the fire, and the nihilism, hard and brittle and load-bearing, is the thing that cracks when the heat gets high enough. And the heat is not dramatic. That is the final, most important point about the park. The heat is not a bonfire. It is not an explosion. It is the warmth of proximity. The warmth of people who show up every day, who say good morning even when you do not respond, who hand you a rake even when they know you will lean on it instead of using it, who include you in their lives not because you have earned inclusion, but because they have decided, for reasons you cannot fathom, that you belong. The park is warm because the people in it are warm. Not always. Not perfectly. Benson yells. Muscle Man is abrasive. Mordecai can be dismissive. But underneath the friction, underneath the comedy, underneath the surface-level dysfunction of a workplace managed by a gumball machine and owned by a lollipop, there is warmth. There is a community. There is a group of people who, against all evidence and all reason, care about each other. Rigby resists this warmth for years. He resists it because warmth melts things, and the nihilism is made of ice. But the warmth does not stop. It does not give up. It does not decide that Rigby is too cold to be worth the effort. It just persists, patient, steady, warm, and eventually, inevitably, the ice begins to thin. There is a version of the Rigby story that would be easier to tell. In that version, Rigby's nihilism is a phase. He goes through it, he comes out the other side, and the rest is growth. But regular show is too honest for that version. What the show depicts, across its middle seasons, is the way nihilism deepens before it breaks, the way the walls get thicker before they crack, the way a person who is afraid of change doubles down on stagnation before they finally, reluctantly, accept that stagnation is its own kind of death. Seasons 4 and 5 contain some of Rigby's worst behavior. This is not a coincidence. This is the show understanding something fundamental about how people change. Before you can let go of a defense mechanism, you have to test it to destruction. You have to push it as far as it can go, see it fail comprehensively, and confront the fact that the thing you have been clinging to does not work. It never worked. It just felt like it worked, because the alternative was too frightening to contemplate. Rigby in seasons 4 and 5 is a person testing the nihilism to destruction. He is meaner. He is more selfish. He is more willing to hurt the people around him to maintain his position. He sabotages Mordecai's relationships with increasing creativity. He treats Eileen with a dismissiveness that sharpens into something approaching contempt. He lies more, cheats more, avoids more. The performance of not caring becomes louder, more aggressive, more desperate. And underneath all of it, the cracks are forming. Because the people around Rigby are growing. Muscle Man gets married. Benson finds moments of peace. Skips confronts his past. Mordecai fumbles through his relationships but at least has them. The world is moving, and Rigby is standing still, and the gap between them is widening, and the nihilism that told him standing still was the safe choice is revealing itself, in the quiet moments when the comedy pauses, as a lie. The lie is this: if you do not try, you cannot fail. The truth, which Rigby is slowly discovering, is worse. If you do not try, you have already failed. You have just chosen a form of failure that does not have a specific date or a specific moment or a specific person looking at you and saying you were not good enough. You have chosen the diffuse, ambient, unlocatable failure of a life that went nowhere. And that failure, because it has no edges, because it is everywhere and nowhere, is the hardest kind to face. You cannot point to it and say, there, that is where I went wrong. You can only look at the whole thing, the whole flat expanse of it, and feel the weight of everything you did not do pressing down on you like a sky. That is where Rigby is, emotionally, when the show enters its later seasons. Not at rock bottom, because rock bottom implies a single catastrophic moment. He is at a plateau, a very low, very comfortable plateau, where nothing changes, and nothing hurts, and nothing matters, and nothing ever will. And then the show introduces the thing that will pull him off the plateau. Not a crisis, not a revelation. A person who has been there all along, waiting patiently, seeing clearly, loving quietly. There is a question that hangs over the first half of regular show's run, and it is this: what happened to Rigby before the show started? The person we see in the pilot, the person who would rather send his boss to the moon than set up a row of chairs. That person was made, not born. Something built those walls. Something taught him that caring was dangerous. Something convinced him, long before we met him, that the safest version of himself was the one that wanted nothing and expected less. The show answers this question in pieces. Fragments scattered across episodes like shrapnel from an explosion that happened years before the story began. But the fullest answer comes in regular show, the movie, which premiered on November 25, 2015. And what it reveals about Rigby is not just backstory. It is the skeleton key that unlocks everything he has done across the entire series. The movie opens in the future, a version of the future where everything has gone wrong. The park crew is fighting a villain called Mr. Ross, and they are losing. Everyone dies except Rigby, who escapes in a time machine. Before dying, the future Rigby tells his present self that he will need to reveal a secret from his past to save the universe. A secret that could destroy his friendship with Mordecai. The secret is this: Rigby and Mordecai both applied to the same college university, and Rigby got in. Mordecai did not. Let that sit for a second. Rigby got into college. The character the show has spent 5 seasons presenting as the less capable, less ambitious, less serious of the two, got into the school they both wanted. And Mordecai, the one who seemed like the obvious choice, the responsible one, the one with potential, did not. The show has been lying to you. Or rather, Rigby has been lying to you. He has been lying to everyone. Because when Rigby found out that he got in and Mordecai did not, he did not celebrate. He did not go. He forged a rejection letter for Mordecai so that his friend would think they were both rejected, and then he dropped out of high school so they could be slackers together. This needs to be stated plainly. Rigby had a future. He had an acceptance letter in his hand. He had proof that he was not the lesser version, and he threw it away, not because he did not care, because he cared too much. He cared about his friendship with Mordecai more than he cared about his own potential. He was so afraid of being separated from the one person who made his world feel manageable, that he sabotaged both of their futures rather than risk the friendship. And then, and this is the part that matters most, he rebuilt his entire personality around the fiction that he never had a choice. He became the slacker. He became the dropout. He became the person who does not try because trying is pointless. He turned a single act of terrified love into a permanent identity. The nihilism was not a philosophy he arrived at through thought. It was a story he told himself to make the sacrifice bearable. If nothing matters, then giving up a college acceptance does not matter. If effort is a trap, then dropping out is not a failure but an escape. If the world is meaningless, then the choice he made was not a tragedy but a shrug. The movie also reveals the origin of the villain, Mr. Ross, who was Rigby's high school volleyball coach. During a state volleyball competition, Rigby played the saxophone in the stands, disrupting the game and costing his team the championship. The coach held a grudge so deep and so lasting that he eventually became a time-traveling supervillain bent on erasing Rigby from existence. The show takes this premise to its logical extreme, as it always does, but underneath the absurdity, the point is sharp. Rigby's carelessness, his inability to take anything seriously, his reflexive need to turn every serious moment into a joke, these are not victimless traits. They cause damage, real damage, damage that reverberates across years, across relationships, across the literal fabric of space and time. And yet the movie does not condemn Rigby. It does something harder. It asks Mordecai to forgive him, and Mordecai does. Not because what Rigby did was acceptable, but because Mordecai understands something about his friend that Rigby does not understand about himself. He understands that Rigby did not sabotage their futures out of malice. He did it out of love. A twisted, immature, deeply destructive kind of love, but love nonetheless. The kind of love that says, I would rather ruin both of our lives than live mine without you. That is not nihilism. That is the opposite of nihilism. That is a person who believes in something so completely that they will burn everything else to protect it. And the tragedy of Rigby is that he buried that belief so deep under layers of performance and avoidance and jokes that he forgot it was there. He forgot that he was someone who loved his friend enough to give up his future. He told himself he was someone who never had a future to give up. And the difference between those two stories, between the person he actually is and the person he pretends to be, is the gap where all of his pain lives. The movie resolves its plot with time travel and explosions and the defeat of Mr. Ross. But the real resolution is smaller. Mordecai and Rigby, back in the present, their secret shared, their friendship damaged but intact, choosing to move forward. Past Rigby apologizes to past Mr. Ross before he can begin his descent into villainy, severing the chain of consequences before it begins. And Rigby, our Rigby, present Rigby, sits with the knowledge that everyone now knows the truth about him. Not the truth he performed, the truth he hid. That exposure is the first major crack in the nihilism, because the nihilism depends on the fiction. It depends on Rigby being the person who never had a chance. Once you know he had a chance and chose to destroy it, the nihilism stops being a worldview and becomes a cover story. And cover stories, once exposed, can never fully protect you again. But seasons 6 and 7 are where the real dismantling begins. Not through dramatic revelations, but through something quieter, slower, and ultimately more powerful, through a relationship, through the accumulation of small moments that, individually, seem like nothing, but together amount to something that looks a lot like change. Before we get to Eileen, though, There is something that needs to be said about what happens to the Mordecai-Rigby dynamic in seasons 6 and 7, because it is one of the most underappreciated narrative moves in the entire show. The show inverts them, slowly, without announcement, without a single episode that declares this is the turning point. The show takes the two characters it spent 5 seasons establishing in a fixed hierarchy and flips them. In the early seasons, the dynamic is clear. Mordecai is the one with potential. Mordecai is the one who cares. Mordecai is the one who tries, even when his trying is hampered by anxiety and indecision. Rigby is the one who drags them both down. Rigby is the anchor. Rigby is the weight. But in seasons 6 and 7, something shifts. Mordecai's romantic life collapses. His relationship with Margaret, which the show spent seasons building, ends. His relationship with CJ, which seemed like a second chance, ends worse. There is a moment in the later seasons where Mordecai finds himself at a party, alone, unsure of who he is or what he wants, and the show holds on that image with the same patient attention it once gave to Rigby's worst moments. Because Mordecai is becoming what Rigby was. Not lazy, not nihilistic in the philosophical sense, but lost, drifting, defined by what he does not have rather than what he does. And Rigby notices. This is the part that matters. Rigby, who spent years being too self-absorbed to notice anyone else's pain, notices that his best friend is drowning. And he does not ignore it. He does not make it about himself. He does not use Mordecai's struggles as evidence that caring about things is pointless, which is what the nihilistic version of Rigby would have done, the version who used other people's failures as confirmation of his worldview. Instead, he helps, quietly, in the background, in ways the show does not always spotlight. He tells Mordecai the truth about his romantic decisions. He is the one who says, essentially, you are messing this up, and you need to stop. He becomes the honest friend, the one who cares enough to be uncomfortable, the one who risks the friendship to serve the friend. Sad Sacks is Season 6, Episode 11. The premise involves Mordecai spiraling after his kiss, with Margaret jeopardizes his relationship with CJ. He seeks advice from a character called the Sad Sax Guy, a park musician who gives terrible romantic counsel, and Rigby, who in earlier seasons would have either ignored the situation or exploited it, does something new. He intervenes. He physically tackles Mordecai to stop him from following bad advice. He tells Mordecai directly that the advice is wrong and the person giving it does not know what he is talking about. Think about the Rigby of Season 2, the Rigby of Do Me a Solid, who used his favors to sabotage Mordecai's date, the Rigby of its time, who asked Margaret out to make Mordecai jealous. That Rigby would have let Mordecai follow the bad advice. That Rigby would have enjoyed watching it fail, because that Rigby's sense of self depended on Mordecai being no better off than he was. The Rigby of Season 6 tackles his friend to the ground to save him from his own bad judgment. That is not the same person. That is not even the same psychology. Something has changed, and the change is so gradual that you could watch every episode in order and not be able to point to the exact moment it happened, because it did not happen in a moment. It happened in the space between moments, in the accumulation of tiny adjustments, tiny braveries, tiny acts of care that the show did not announce with music or speeches, but simply let exist, the way real growth exists, quietly and without fanfare. The show understands something about growth that most stories do not. Growth is not a line. It is not a trajectory that moves consistently upward. It is a tide. It comes in and goes out. There are days when Rigby is the person he is becoming, generous and honest and capable of love. And there are days when he is the person he was, selfish and scared and buried behind walls. The show does not pretend the old Rigby disappears. It shows both versions coexisting, fighting for control, and it lets the better version win by inches rather than by miles. That is what makes the rhythm of Rigby's growth so satisfying over the course of the series. It comes in waves. It ebbs and flows. The story moves a little further each time. The character changes a little more, and the world feels slightly different from how you remember it. You do not need to track every detail. The shape of the story carries you even when you are not paying full attention. And the shape of this story, the specific shape of Rigby's arc from nihilism to engagement, is one of the most satisfying shapes in all of animated television, because it does not cheat. It does not skip steps. It does not pretend that change is easy or fast or guaranteed. It just shows a person, one small, stubborn, terrified person, deciding, one day at a time, that the world might be worth meeting after all. There is a concept in psychology called the false self, and it describes what Rigby has been doing for the entire show up to this point. The false self is the version of you that you construct for public consumption. It is the mask you wear because you believe the real you is unacceptable. It is the performance you give because you believe the person underneath the performance would be rejected if anyone saw them clearly. Rigby's false self is the slacker, the joker, the nihilist, the person who does not care. It is a convincing performance. It has fooled Mordecai, who has known him for years. It has fooled Benson. It has fooled the audience. It has, most devastatingly, fooled Rigby himself. He has been wearing the mask for so long that he has forgotten it is a mask. He thinks the performance is him. He thinks the nihilism is his personality rather than his armor. The dangerous thing about a false self is that it is not entirely false. There are elements of Rigby's performance that are genuinely him. He is funny. He is energetic. He is creative in his destruction. Those things are real, but they are arranged around a hollow center, around the absence of the thing he is hiding, which is his capacity for care, for effort, for vulnerability. The false self takes real traits and arranges them in a pattern that conceals the gap. And the gap, the empty space where the real self should be, is what makes the performance feel urgent and exhausting. Rigby is not relaxed in his nihilism. He is frantic. He is constantly performing. He is never off. Because being off would mean being seen, and being seen would mean being known. And being known would mean someone might discover that the person under the mask is not the person they were led to expect. The show never uses the language of psychology to describe this. It does not need to. It shows you the false self in action. It shows you the frantic energy of a person maintaining a performance. It shows you the anger that flares when someone gets too close to the truth. It shows you the loneliness that accumulates when the only person anyone interacts with is a version of you that does not exist. And it shows you, eventually, what happens when the false self starts to crack. When the real person starts to emerge, when the mask begins to slip and the face underneath is not what anyone expected, not monstrous, not inadequate, not the failure the mask was built to hide, but just a person, an ordinary, scared, capable, loving person who has been hiding inside his own costume for years. That is the real Rigby, and the show's great project, its most ambitious and most successful achievement, is introducing you to him. Her name is Eileen. Eileen Roberts first appears in Season 2 as a minor recurring character. She works at a coffee shop. She is a mole. She wears glasses. She is quiet, studious, and almost invisible in the loud, chaotic world of the park. She has a crush on Rigby from the moment she meets him, and Rigby's initial response to that crush is dismissal, so thorough it borders on erasure. He does not dislike Eileen. That would require acknowledging her enough to form an opinion. He simply does not see her. She exists in his peripheral vision, and he keeps her there, because seeing her would mean being seen by her, and being seen is the thing Rigby cannot allow. The show handles Eileen's arc with remarkable patience. She does not force herself into Rigby's life. She does not deliver ultimatums or grand declarations. She simply persists. She shows up. She is kind. She is competent. She is interested in things, genuinely interested, in a way that Rigby is not. She reads books. She has plans. She has what the show later calls the Eileen Plan, a roadmap for her life that she wrote as a teenager, complete with academic goals and career milestones and a box for the kind of person she wants to marry. That box says, someone brilliant. And Rigby, who does not have a high school diploma, who sleeps on a trampoline instead of a bed, who has never planned anything in his life beyond what he wants for lunch, sees that box and feels something crack inside him. The Eileen Plan is a Season 7 episode. It aired in November of 2015. By this point in the series, Rigby and Eileen are not yet officially dating, but they have been circling each other for years. The show has built their connection slowly, through shared experiences and quiet moments, and Eileen's persistent, patient belief that Rigby is more than what he shows the world. And in this episode, that belief meets the thing Rigby has been hiding from everyone. Rigby sees Eileen's life plan. He sees the word brilliant, and he does something he has never done before. He goes back to high school, not for himself, for her, because for the first time, someone's opinion of him matters more than his fear of being measured. Eileen's plan says she wants someone brilliant. Rigby is not brilliant, but he can get a diploma. He can close the gap between what he is and what she deserves, even if closing it means submitting to the very system of evaluation he has spent his entire life fleeing. He does this in secret. He attends classes while pretending to be at work. He does homework for the first time in years. He sits in a classroom surrounded by teenagers, a 23-year-old raccoon in a room full of kids, and he tries. He tries in a way the show has never depicted him trying before. Not with the desperate, shortcut-seeking energy of more smarter, where he drank a chemical to avoid the work. With actual effort, sustained, unglamorous, day after day effort. The kind of effort that has no montage. The kind that just looks like a person sitting at a desk, being confused, and not giving up. Eileen eventually finds out. She tracks him down on a field trip after he keeps canceling their plans. She is upset at first because he has been disappearing on her without explanation, and she thinks he is losing interest. But when she discovers what he has actually been doing, her response is not what Rigby expected. She does not say he needs to be brilliant. She does not say the diploma matters. She says she likes him for who he is. She says the plan was written by a teenager who did not know what she actually wanted. She says he does not need to change for her. And Rigby, in what might be the single most important moment of his entire character arc, makes a choice. He decides to keep going, not for Eileen, for himself. He hears her say, "You do not need to do this," and instead of using that as permission to quit, he absorbs it as evidence that quitting would be safe, and then chooses not to be safe. He chooses to keep trying, because somewhere between the first day of class and this moment on a field trip in a cave, Rigby discovered something the nihilism had been hiding from him his entire life. Trying does not feel like he thought it would. It does not feel like submission. It does not feel like measurement. It feels like being alive in a way he has not felt since he was a kid, before the walls went up, before the performance became permanent, before he forgot that he was someone who chose to give up his future rather than lose his best friend. The nihilism told him that trying was dangerous. The nihilism was right. Trying is dangerous. But the thing the nihilism never mentioned is that not trying is more dangerous. Not trying is how you wake up at 23 on a trampoline in someone else's house, working a job you do not care about, pretending that the life you are living is the life you chose instead of the life you fell into because you were too scared to choose anything else. Rigby does not articulate this. He is not a character who articulates things. He is a character who acts, and then the show lets you figure out what the action means. And the action, in this case, is going back to class the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that, until the trying becomes ordinary, until effort stops being an event and starts being a habit, until the nihilism, starved of the fear that sustained it, begins to thin. That is not a dramatic transformation. That is not a single episode where everything changes. That is the slow, quiet, almost invisible process of a person outgrowing the story they told about themselves. And it is one of the most honest depictions of personal growth that any animated show has ever produced. But Eileen is not the only relationship that cracks Rigby's nihilism. There is another one, louder and angrier and more visible, that does just as much work. The relationship between Rigby and Benson, which for most of the show looks like a simple comedy dynamic, boss yells at employee, employee ignores boss, is actually one of the most important mirrors the show gives Rigby. Because Benson is what Rigby's nihilism looks like from the outside. Benson is a gumball machine who manages the park with the frantic energy of a person who knows, at every moment, that things are about to go wrong. He yells. He threatens to fire Mordecai and Rigby multiple times per episode. He turns red, literally, the gumballs inside his transparent head shifting color with his rage. And the show, for its first few seasons, plays this as comedy. Benson is the uptight boss. Mordecai and Rigby are the fun employees. The audience sides with the slackers because slacking off is fun to watch and responsibility is boring. But look at it from Benson's perspective. He has a job. He cares about that job. He is trying, genuinely trying, to maintain a park that is constantly being destroyed by the people he is supposed to manage. And those people do not care. Rigby, specifically, does not care. Rigby treats Benson's standards as jokes. He treats Benson's anger as entertainment. He treats Benson's entire system of values, effort, accountability, pride in work as a performance that has nothing to do with him. Think Positive is Season 3, Episode 14. It aired in early 2012. In this episode, Pops threatens to fire Benson if he does not stop yelling at Mordecai and Rigby. The show reveals that Benson's anger has a supernatural dimension. If he holds it in, he transforms into a destructive force that threatens to consume everything around him. The episode traces Benson's anger back to his childhood. His family was always arguing. His father taught him to yell to get what he wanted. The rage is not a management style. It is a survival mechanism. It is the way Benson learned to exist in a world that was always loud and always hostile. And here is the mirror. Benson's rage is to Benson what Rigby's nihilism is to Rigby. A coping mechanism that became a personality, a response to childhood that calcified into an adult identity. Benson screams because he was taught that screaming is how you make the world listen. Rigby shrugs because he was taught that shrugging is how you survive a world that has already decided you are not worth listening to. Both of them are trapped in patterns they formed before they were old enough to choose differently. And the show, by placing them in constant conflict, forces each of them to confront the cost of their respective patterns. Benson's yelling does not make Rigby work harder. It makes Rigby work less. Because every time Benson screams, it confirms Rigby's belief that authority is hostile, that standards are weapons, that the system exists to punish rather than support. And Rigby's slacking does not make Benson calmer. It makes Benson angrier. Because every time Rigby shrugs, it confirms Benson's belief that the world does not take him seriously, that his efforts do not matter, that he is managing chaos with a clipboard and a whistle. They are both right, they are both wrong, and they are both stuck. The Lunch Club, Season 7, Episode 3, is the episode where the show finally puts them in a room together and forces them to stop performing. The premise is simple. Mr. Mellard, the park's owner, is furious because Rigby ruined a billionaire brunch by driving a lawnmower into it while asleep. As punishment, he locks Benson and Rigby in Benson's office and tells them that one of them must write a letter of resignation by 5 o'clock, or both will be fired. The episode strips away everything. No supernatural escalation, no monsters, no interdimensional threats, just two characters in a room, talking, and what emerges is something the show has been building toward for years. Benson and Rigby are not enemies. They are not opposites. They are the same person wearing different masks. Both of them are afraid of the same thing: failure, irrelevance, being exposed as inadequate. And both of them have chosen coping mechanisms that make the other person's fear worse. Benson talks about his dreams. He wanted to be a drummer. He gave it up for stability, for a job, for the illusion of control that management provides. He gave it up because somebody told him, or because he told himself, that drums were not a real career, that stability was more important than joy, that the responsible thing to do was to put the sticks down and pick up the clipboard. And he has been carrying that clipboard ever since, and it has not made him happy, and he has not put it down, because putting it down would mean admitting that the sacrifice was for nothing. Rigby talks about his lack of dreams. He never had them, or he did, once, and they were so small and so unprotected that they did not survive contact with a world that expected more from him than he believed he could give. He does not say this in these words. He does not have the language for it, but Benson hears it anyway. Benson, who knows what it feels like to have a dream die, recognizes the sound of someone describing a dream they killed before it could be killed by someone else. Preemptive dream murder. That is what Rigby's nihilism is, when you strip it down to its barest mechanism. He killed his own dreams before the world could, and then he told himself he never had them. The conversation is quiet. It is honest. It is two people admitting, for the first time, that the roles they play, the angry boss and the careless employee, are not who they are. They are who they became, because becoming someone else felt impossible. And the room holds them. The locked door, which was supposed to be a punishment, becomes a gift, because the door prevents them from doing what they have always done, which is leave, walk away, retreat into the performance. The door says you cannot leave until you are honest, and for once, For the first time in 7 seasons, they are honest. There is a line of dialogue in this episode, or something close to a line, where Benson says something to the effect of, "I know you are not as bad as you act." And Rigby does not respond with a joke. He does not deflect. He sits with it. He lets the words land. And the show holds on his face. And what you see is not the nihilist. What you see is the person the nihilist has been hiding. A person who is tired, not lazy tired, bone tired, tired of the performance, tired of the walls, tired of being the version of himself that nobody respects but everyone expects. Nobody writes the resignation letter. The episode ends without resolution, at least not the kind Maillard wanted. But the real resolution is in what happened inside that room. Rigby and Benson saw each other, not the performance, the person. And once you have seen someone that clearly, you cannot go back to pretending they are just a cartoon of themselves. The next time Benson yells at Rigby, there will be something different in it. Not softer necessarily. Benson will still yell, but the yelling will carry, underneath its surface, the memory of a conversation in a locked room where both of them admitted they were scared. And that memory, unspoken, will change the texture of every interaction they have for the rest of the show. If you are enjoying this analysis, a subscription really does help us keep making these videos. There is a specific kind of loneliness that comes from being surrounded by people who only know the version of you that you show them. Rigby lives in that loneliness for most of the series. He is never alone. He is always with Mordecai, always at the park, always surrounded by people who talk to him and argue with him and include him in their plans. But none of them know him. Not really. They know the Rigby who cracks jokes and starts fights and breaks things. They do not know the Rigby who gave up college for his best friend. They do not know the Rigby who lies awake on his trampoline wondering if this is all there is. They do not know the Rigby who is afraid. The show never gives Rigby a monologue about this loneliness. It does not need to. It shows it. It shows it in the way Rigby reacts when someone gets too close to the truth. When Mordecai teases him about not having a diploma, Rigby does not laugh it off. He gets angry, disproportionately angry. The anger is a perimeter alarm. Someone has approached the border of the real Rigby, and the defense systems are activating. It shows it in the way Rigby treats vulnerability in others. When Mordecai is struggling with his feelings for Margaret, Rigby does not offer support. He sabotages, he mocks, he undermines. Not because he wants Mordecai to be unhappy, but because Mordecai's vulnerability is a reminder that vulnerability exists. And if it exists for Mordecai, it exists for him too. And acknowledging his own vulnerability is something Rigby cannot do. Not yet. Not until the nihilism thins enough to let the real thing through. The show also shows Rigby's loneliness through his relationship with his parents. Rigby's father, Sherm, is a figure who appears rarely, but whose shadow falls across the entire series. The show tells us, through fragments and implications, that Sherm favored Dawn, that he compared the brothers, that he held Rigby to standards Rigby could not meet, and expressed his disappointment in ways that left marks. The show never depicts Sherm as a villain. He is not cruel. He is not abusive in any dramatic, visible way. He is simply a father who had 2 sons and found one of them easier to understand, easier to be proud of, easier to love in the uncomplicated way that parents love children who meet their expectations. And Rigby, the son who did not meet those expectations, drew a conclusion. The conclusion was not "my father is unfair" or "my father does not understand me." The conclusion was, "I am not enough." And from that conclusion, everything else follows. If you are not enough, then trying harder will only make the insufficiency more visible. If you are not enough, then the people who love you are either lying or settling. If you are not enough, then the safest thing to do is lower everyone's expectations so far that failing to meet them is impossible. Become the slacker. Become the dropout. Become the person nobody expects anything from, and you will never feel the weight of their disappointment again. That is not nihilism as philosophy. That is nihilism as anesthesia. It does not make the pain go away. It makes you stop feeling it. And it also makes you stop feeling everything else. Rigby Goes to the Prom is Season 7, Episode 27. It aired in 2016. By this point in the series, Rigby is attending high school classes to earn his diploma. He has been dating Eileen. He has been growing, slowly, unevenly, in the way real people grow. And this episode puts him in a situation that would have been unthinkable in the early seasons. He is going to prom. Rigby needs his father's car to drive Eileen to the dance. This means he needs to interact with his father. This means he needs to go home. The episode does not make this easy. The show does not suddenly make Sherm into a supportive, understanding parent. The dynamic between them is still tense, still charged with years of accumulated disappointment and distance. But Rigby goes. He borrows the car. He drives Eileen to prom. He wears a suit. He dances. He does the thing that his younger self would have dismissed as pointless and stupid and beneath him. Eileen tells him it is the best prom she has ever been to. She adds that it is the only prom she has ever been to. They share a moment together, and the show holds on the image. And what you see in that moment is not a nihilist pretending to have fun. What you see is a person who has discovered, with genuine surprise, that caring about something does not destroy you. That effort does not always end in humiliation. That showing up, for someone else and for yourself, can feel like the most natural thing in the world. There is something specific about the prom episode that needs to be unpacked, because it reveals a dimension of Rigby's growth that the show handles with unusual delicacy. The prom is a high school ritual. It is a thing you are supposed to do at 17 or 18, at the right time, in the right sequence, as part of the normal progression from childhood to adulthood. Rigby is doing it years late. He is doing it wrong, by the standards of the timeline he was supposed to follow. He is a grown man at a teenage dance. And the show does not treat this as pathetic. It does not treat it as tragic. It treats it as brave. Because going to prom at the right time, with the right people, in the right context, that is easy. Everyone does it. It requires no courage. Going to prom years late, as a dropout who is only now earning his diploma, with a woman who knows exactly how late he is and loves him anyway. That requires the kind of courage that does not look like courage from the outside. From the outside, it just looks like a small raccoon in a suit, dancing badly in a gymnasium. From the inside, it is a person choosing to participate in a life he spent years refusing to join. The nihilism said that participating was pointless. The nihilism said that being late was the same as being absent. The nihilism said that the normal timeline, the one everyone else followed, was the only legitimate path. And since Rigby had deviated from it beyond repair, there was no point in trying to find his way back. And the prom is Rigby's answer to all of that. Not an argument, not a rebuttal, just a man in a suit, dancing with a woman he loves, in a gymnasium full of teenagers who do not know his story and do not need to. You do not need to arrive on time to arrive. You just need to arrive. The nihilism told Rigby that nothing mattered. Eileen told him that he mattered, and slowly, one episode at a time, one small brave act at a time, Eileen's version of the truth started winning. But there is a question embedded in this progression that the show does not shy away from. What does it mean for Eileen to love Rigby? Not what does it mean for Rigby, because we have covered that. But what does it mean for Eileen, because Eileen is not a prize. She is not a reward for good behavior. She is not the thing Rigby earns by growing up. She is a person, with her own arc, her own fears, her own reasons for choosing the person she chooses. Eileen chooses Rigby not because he becomes a better person, but because she sees the better person in him before he sees it in himself. She sees it in "Do Me a Solid," when he is at his worst, treating her with dismissive cruelty, and she does not walk away. She sees it in dozens of small episodes across the middle seasons, where Rigby is careless and thoughtless and self-absorbed, and she remains present, not as a doormat, not as someone with no self-respect, as someone who has made a judgment about another person's potential and is willing to wait for that potential to manifest. There is a risk in this framing. In lesser shows, Eileen's patience would be indistinguishable from passivity. Her love for Rigby would be a function of the story's need for Rigby to have someone to grow toward, not a genuine expression of her own character. But regular show is not a lesser show. Eileen's patience is active. It is a choice she makes and remakes. She has standards. She has the Eileen plan. She has a vision of her life that is detailed and ambitious. And she chooses to include Rigby in that vision, not because he meets the criteria she set as a teenager, but because he shows her something her teenage self did not anticipate. He shows her that the person who matters most to you does not have to be the person who looks best on paper. Sometimes the person who matters most is the one who makes you laugh, who challenges your assumptions, who is so different from you that being with him forces you to see the world from angles you never considered. Rigby makes Eileen bigger, not in the way a project makes you bigger, where you improve someone else as a measure of your own capability. In the way that genuine connection makes you bigger, where the presence of another person's perspective expands your own. Eileen without Rigby is competent, organized, safe. Eileen with Rigby is competent, organized, safe, and also spontaneous, adventurous, alive in a way she was not when she was alone with her plans. The show earns this by giving Eileen agency. She is not waiting for Rigby to change. She is living her life. She has a job. She goes to college. She graduates. She has friendships and interests and a rich inner world that exists entirely independently of Rigby. The fact that she also loves him is a part of her story, not the whole of it. And because the show treats her as a complete person, her choice to be with Rigby feels like a genuine choice rather than a narrative convenience. That distinction matters enormously for Rigby's arc, because if Eileen were simply a prop, a motivational object designed to inspire Rigby's growth, then Rigby's growth would be about acquisition. He would be growing in order to deserve her, and the growth would be instrumentalized, reduced to a means to an end. But because Eileen is a person who chose him, freely and with full knowledge of who he is, Rigby's growth becomes about something else entirely. It becomes about living up to the version of himself that someone else already believes in. That is a profoundly different engine for change. It is not "I need to become worthy of this person." It is someone sees something in me that I cannot see in myself, and I owe it to both of us to find out if they are right. The nihilism said there was nothing there to see. Eileen said there was. And the show, across its final seasons, lets Rigby discover who is telling the truth. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But there is one more thing the show does with Rigby before it lets him grow fully, and it is possibly the cruelest and most necessary thing it could do. It makes Mordecai the nihilist. This is the reversal that nobody expected, and it is the reversal that makes Rigby's arc complete. Because in the later seasons of regular show, as Rigby is quietly putting his life together, attending school, dating Eileen, learning to try, Mordecai is falling apart. His relationship with Margaret ends. His relationship with CJ ends badly. He becomes the one who cannot figure out what he wants, who makes choices that hurt people, who drifts through his life without direction. And Rigby, the former nihilist, the person who spent years telling himself and everyone else that nothing matters, becomes the one who calls Mordecai out. He becomes the one who says, essentially, you need to get it together. He becomes the voice of accountability in a friendship that used to have no accountability at all. Think about what that means. The character who dropped out of high school to avoid being separated from his friend. The character who forged a rejection letter to keep them both at the bottom. That character is now the one pushing his friend to be better. Rigby is not punishing Mordecai. He is not enjoying the reversal. He is doing something much harder than that. He is being the person he needed someone to be for him years ago. He is being the friend who says, I love you enough to tell you the truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable, even when it threatens the easy equilibrium we both got used to. In Dumped at the Altar, the season 6 finale, Rigby reveals to Mordecai that he and Eileen have been dating for months. They have been keeping it secret because they did not want to rub their happiness in Mordecai's face while he was dealing with the fallout of his own romantic disasters. Think about that. Rigby, the character who once sabotaged Mordecai's dates out of jealousy, is now hiding his own happiness to protect Mordecai's feelings. That is not the behavior of a nihilist. That is the behavior of someone who has learned, through painful experience, that other people's emotions are real, and that protecting them is not weakness but care. The matching bracelets that Rigby and Eileen wear in that episode are a small detail, but they carry enormous weight. Bracelets are a commitment. They are a public declaration, even a small one, that you belong to someone and they belong to you. Rigby, who spent years avoiding every form of commitment, who treated attachments as traps, is wearing a bracelet. He chose to wear it. Nobody forced him. The nihilism that told him nothing mattered and no attachment was worth making is so thin now that he can commit to another person and wear the evidence on his wrist. That is growth. Not the dramatic, cinematic kind. The real kind. The kind that happens so slowly you do not notice it until you look back and realize the person you are looking at is not the person you remember. The show understood this. The show understood that growth is not a montage. It is not a breakthrough. It is 1,000 small choices, each one slightly braver than the last, until bravery stops being an event and becomes a habit. And Rigby's arc, traced across 8 seasons of a cartoon about a raccoon and a blue jay who work at a park, is one of the most complete and honest depictions of that process in the history of animated television. There is a moment in the Season 7 finale, Rigby's Graduation Day Special, which aired on June 30th, 2016, where Rigby stands at a podium and gives a speech. It is the first season finale of regular show to be a half-hour special. And it is, quietly, the emotional climax of the entire show. Not the series finale, not the cosmic battle. This, a raccoon at a podium. He is graduating from high school. Eileen is in the audience. She is graduating from college on the same day. Think about that parallel. On the same day that Rigby receives the diploma he should have earned years ago, Eileen receives the degree that she earned on schedule, on time, according to the plan she wrote as a teenager. They are at different points on the same timeline. Eileen is where society expects her to be. Rigby is years behind. And neither of them cares about the gap, because the gap is not a measurement of worth. It is just a fact that describes where they have been, not what they are. Mordecai is there. Benson is there. Everyone who has watched Rigby be the worst version of himself for years is sitting in those chairs, watching him stand up and speak, and there is a tension in the scene that the show handles with extraordinary care, because this is a crowd of people who know Rigby, who have been frustrated by him, disappointed by him, hurt by him, who have watched him slack off and lie and cheat and avoid and destroy. And they are sitting there, in folding chairs, looking up at him, waiting to hear what he has to say. And his speech is not eloquent. It is not polished. It is not the kind of speech a confident person gives. It is not the kind of speech you would broadcast on national television if you were looking for polish. It is the kind of speech a person gives when they are still surprised that they are standing at a podium at all. When the fact of standing, of being upright, of not having run away, is itself the accomplishment. Rigby says, essentially, that once you do the hard stuff, it becomes not that hard. That is it. That is the whole message. No grand philosophy. No sweeping thesis about the meaning of life. No clever wordplay or rhetorical flourish, or quotable line designed to go viral. Just a simple observation from a person who spent years avoiding the hard stuff, and then, when he finally tried it, discovered that the fear was worse than the thing itself. Once you do the hard stuff, it becomes not that hard. 8 words. And they contain everything the show has spent 7 seasons building. The insight that effort is not what Rigby thought it was. That the monster he spent his life running from, the monster of being measured, of being evaluated, of being seen trying and possibly failing, is smaller than his imagination made it. That the hard stuff is hard, yes, but it is not the insurmountable, identity-destroying, soul-crushing ordeal the nihilism promised it would be. It is just hard, and hard things, once you start doing them, become less hard. Not because you get smarter or stronger or more talented, because you get braver. Because each hard thing you survive teaches you that the next hard thing will not kill you either. That is the final reframe. The nihilism told Rigby that trying was pointless because the world was indifferent. The truth, the thing Rigby discovers through years of slow, unglamorous growth, is that trying is not pointless because the world cares. The world might be indifferent. The nihilism might be technically correct about the universe's lack of inherent meaning, but the nihilism was wrong about why you try. You do not try because the universe rewards effort. You try because trying is how you become the person you were afraid you could not be. You try because the alternative, the trampoline and the snack bar, and the endless, comfortable, suffocating sameness, is not protection. It is a prison you built yourself and then forgot you had the key to. The show does something remarkable with the audience reaction to Rigby's speech. It does not show the crowd erupting in applause. It does not give him a standing ovation. It shows Mordecai's face. And on Mordecai's face is something complicated. Something that is not entirely pride, though pride is part of it. It is the recognition that his friend, the person he has known since kindergarten, the person he has carried and been carried by, the person who forged his rejection letter and ruined his dates and cheated at every game they ever played, has become someone he did not expect. Not better than him, not worse than him, different from what he thought. And the recognition of that difference is disorienting, because it means that Mordecai has to let go of his version of Rigby too. He has to let go of the Rigby who was always less than, the Rigby who was always the anchor, the Rigby who made Mordecai feel better about his own stagnation by being more stagnant. That Rigby is gone. The person at the podium is someone else, someone who still looks the same, who still sounds the same, who still stands around 3 feet tall, but who is, fundamentally, in ways that cannot be undone, different. The speech is broadcast on a show called Inspire America. The episode plays this for gentle comedy. Rigby, on national television, giving an inspirational speech. The raccoon who could not pass a class, who could not set up a row of chairs without causing an interdimensional incident, on national TV, inspiring people. The joke is in the absurdity, but the emotion is in the truth. Because Rigby is inspiring, not despite his failures, because of them, because he failed in every way a person can fail, and he kept going, and he stood up at that podium, not as evidence that failure does not matter, but as proof that it does not have to be permanent. There is something about the graduation scene that connects directly to anyone who has ever felt behind, because everyone knows what it feels like to be late, to look at the people around them and see accomplishments they have not achieved, milestones they have not reached, timelines they have not followed. Everyone knows the specific, corrosive feeling of comparing their progress to someone else's and finding themselves wanting. And the graduation scene says, it does not matter. Not in the nihilistic sense, where nothing matters and comparison is meaningless because everything is meaningless. In the opposite sense, it matters. It all matters. Your progress matters, and their progress matters, and the gap between you matters. But the gap is not a verdict. It is not a measurement of your worth. It is just a distance, and distances can be closed. Not quickly, not easily, not by shortcuts or magic keyboards or intelligence chemicals, by showing up, by trying, by doing the hard stuff until the hard stuff becomes not that hard. That is what Rigby tells the crowd. That is what the show tells you. That is what this entire video has been about, dressed up in the language of cartoon analysis and character psychology and thematic structure. The simplest, most important thing any story can say. You are not too late. You are not too far behind. You are not too broken, or too scared, or too small. You just have to start. The episode ends with the park being launched into space. That is not a metaphor. The physical park, the ground and the trees and the house and the cart and all the people standing on it, gets shot into orbit. Season 8 of regular show takes place entirely in space, and the shift in setting serves a narrative purpose beyond novelty. It removes Rigby from every familiar context. No park, no city, no school, no safety net. Just the void, and the people he has chosen to be with, and the question of who he is when everything he used to define himself, the job, the routine, the comfortable smallness, is gone. But before we talk about the final season, there is something that needs to be said about the show's use of the supernatural as a mirror for Rigby's internal world. Because this is, in the end, what separates regular show from every other animated comedy that preceded it. Other shows use supernatural elements as gags, as spectacle, as plot engines. Regular show uses them as psychological externalization. Every monster Rigby faces, every interdimensional crisis he causes, every cosmic escalation that spirals out from a trivial decision is, on some level, a physical manifestation of a psychological truth the show cannot state directly within the rules of its genre. When Rigby's body leaves him in Rigby's body, the show is not just doing slapstick. It is showing you what dissociation looks like. A person so disconnected from his own physical reality that his body and his consciousness separate. When Rigby dies in Over the Top, the show is not just doing a death gag. It is showing you what self-destruction looks like. A person who pushes so hard against a reality he cannot accept that the pushing kills him. When the wall buddy splits Rigby's room into an ever-expanding maze of divided spaces, the show is showing you what avoidance looks like when it becomes architectural. The walls multiply, the spaces shrink, and eventually, you are trapped in a room you built yourself, surrounded by walls you created to keep problems out, and you cannot remember which side of the wall you are on. The supernatural in regular show is psychology wearing a costume. And the costume is brilliant because it lets the show explore depths of character that would feel preachy or heavy-handed in a realistic setting. You cannot have a straightforward scene where Rigby sits on a therapist's couch and says, "I am afraid that if I try my hardest, it will not be enough." That is not the show. That is not the genre. But you can have a scene where Rigby acquires a magic device that does his work for him, and the device gains sentience and tries to replace him, and the replacement is identical in every way except that it hugs people, and the only thing that distinguishes the real Rigby from the copy is his inability to show affection. That scene says the same thing as the therapist scene, but it says it in a way that is funnier, sadder, and more true, because it lets the audience do the interpretive work instead of having the character do the emotional labor. Every great Rigby episode operates on this dual level. The surface is a comedy about a raccoon getting into trouble. The depth is a character study about a person at war with himself. And the show never breaks the surface to point at the depth. It trusts you to see it. It trusts you to feel it. It trusts you to follow the story of a raccoon who fights his own body and loses, and to understand, without being told, that the metaphor is real, that you have felt the same way, that you have been at war with your own limits, that you have wished, at some point, that you could separate yourself from the part of you that is tired and heavy and cannot keep up with what the world demands. That is the genius of the show's construction. Not the supernatural elements themselves, which are often deliberately ridiculous, sentient video game characters, time-traveling volleyball coaches, death personified as a guy in a hoodie. The genius is in the precision of the metaphors. Every supernatural threat maps onto a real emotional experience. Every escalation corresponds to a psychological truth. The show is doing the work of literary fiction while wearing the costume of a cartoon comedy, and it is doing it so well that most people do not realize the work is being done at all. For Rigby specifically, the supernatural functions as a pressure test. Every magical crisis forces him to confront something he is avoiding. The magic keyboard forces him to confront his relationship with authority. The death confrontation forces him to confront his relationship with competition. The time travel movie forces him to confront his relationship with his own history. Each one strips away a layer of the performance and exposes something raw and real underneath. And the show's genius is that it does this repeatedly, across 244 episodes, without ever feeling like a therapy session. It feels like a cartoon. It feels like fun. It feels like the kind of show you put on when you need something familiar and warm. And it is all of those things. It is also, underneath, one of the most sustained and honest character studies in the history of American animation. Think about that. 244 episodes of a character growing, not in a straight line, not in a montage, in the messy, non-linear, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back way that real people grow. Sometimes Rigby is better than he was. Sometimes he is worse. Sometimes the growth from 3 episodes ago seems to evaporate, and you are back to the same selfish, scared, loud little raccoon who cannot set up a row of chairs. And then, just when you think nothing has changed, he does something small, something almost invisible, a moment of consideration, a beat of silence, where he might have once filled the air with deflection, and you realize that the change is still happening. It is just happening underground, in the root system, where nobody can see it. The flower has not bloomed yet, but the roots are spreading. That is how the show rewards patience. The complexity unfolds gradually, and the story keeps going, steady and unhurried, like a conversation with a friend who knows you will hear the important parts, even if your attention drifts. If you are still with us, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel more than you might think. Season 8 of Regular Show, subtitled Regular Show in Space, premiered on September 26, 2016, and concluded with the series finale on January 16, 2017. It is the shortest season of the show, and it is the most focused. The stakes are existential, literally. Anti-Pops, the evil twin of Pops, threatens to destroy the universe. The park crew must help Pops defeat him, and the show uses this cosmic framework to bring every character's arc to its conclusion. For Rigby, the space season is the final test. Everything the show has built, every crack in the nihilism, every small step toward growth, is put under pressure. And the pressure is literal. They are in space. There is no ground beneath them. There is no park to go back to. There is no comfortable routine to hide inside. Just the void. Infinite, indifferent, uncaring space. The nihilism's dream environment, a place where nothing matters because there is nothing there. And Rigby, the former nihilist, the person who spent years arguing that the universe did not care, is the one who cares the most. That is the reversal. That is the punchline the show has been setting up for 8 years. Put Rigby in the environment that most resembles his philosophy, the empty, meaningless vacuum of space, and watch what happens. What happens is that he fights. He cares. He loves. He stands up for things. He protects people. The void does not convert him. It reveals him. Because the nihilism was never about the void. The nihilism was about fear. And in space, surrounded by people who need him, facing threats that could destroy everything he has built, the fear does not go away. It is still there. It will always be there. But it is no longer the loudest voice in the room. The love is louder. The connection is louder. The desire to protect the people who saw through him and chose to stay is louder than any fear he has ever felt. What emerges is not the old Rigby, not the nihilist, and not the slacker, not the person who hides behind jokes and indifference. What emerges is a person, a full, complicated, imperfect person who cares about things and is willing to fight for them. Not a perfect person, not a person who has resolved all of his issues. Rigby in Season 8 still has the instincts. He still has moments where the old patterns flicker, where the urge to deflect or avoid or make a joke surfaces. But they are just instincts now. They are not commands. He can feel them and choose not to follow them. He can notice the nihilism rising and let it pass. He has not killed the nihilism. He has outgrown it. It is still there, like a childhood coat you keep in the closet, too small to wear but too significant to throw away. Rigby in Season 8 is a partner. He is with Eileen, openly, without hiding, without shame, without the reflexive flinch that used to accompany any acknowledgement of emotional connection. Eileen, who ended up in space with the rest of the park crew, becomes a space ranger alongside them. She is competent, she is brave, she is exactly who she has always been, but in a context that lets her qualities shine more visibly. And Rigby's pride in her, his willingness to support her, his ability to exist in a relationship without sabotaging it. These are the fruits of 7 seasons of barely perceptible growth. There is a detail in Season 8 that is easy to overlook, but which contains multitudes. Rigby and Eileen function as a unit. They make decisions together. They check in with each other. They have the easy, practiced rhythm of 2 people who have figured out how to be in the same space without diminishing each other. This is not the Rigby of Do Me a Solid, who sabotaged a date because he could not tolerate his friend being happy. This is a Rigby who has learned, through practice and error, that another person's happiness does not diminish his own, that love is not a zero-sum game, that there is room in the world for him and for the people he cares about, and that their success does not threaten his survival. That sounds simple. It is not. For someone who spent years operating on the assumption that the world was a competition, and that any gain for someone else was a loss for him, the realization that love expands rather than divides is transformative. It restructures the entire operating system. It replaces scarcity with abundance, competition with collaboration, isolation with connection. And the show depicts this transformation not through a speech or a moment of clarity, but through behavior, through the way Rigby stands next to Eileen, through the way he talks about her when she is not in the room, through the small, invisible acts of partnership that accumulate over the course of a season and add up to something that looks a lot like maturity. Rigby in Season 8 is also a friend, not the kind of friend he was to Mordecai in the early seasons, where friendship meant enabling each other's worst impulses. A real friend, the kind who pushes you to be better, the kind who tells you the truth even when it is easier to lie, the kind who has been where you are and can guide you through it because he remembers the way out. The show tracks this through the Mordecai-Rigby dynamic, which inverts almost completely in the final season. Mordecai is lost. He does not know what he wants to do with his life. He does not know who he is outside of his romantic relationships. He is, in many ways, where Rigby was at the start of the series, drifting, aimless, using circumstance as an excuse for inaction. And Rigby, who knows that terrain intimately, who lived in that terrain for years, becomes his guide. Not by lecturing, not by being smug about his own growth, by simply being there, by being the example, by being the living proof that the terrain is not permanent, that the drifting ends, that there is solid ground on the other side of it if you are willing to keep walking. There is something deeply moving about watching the former nihilist become the one who believes in things. Because Rigby's belief is not naive. It is not the belief of someone who has never been tested. It is the belief of someone who tested the alternative, the not caring, the not trying, the comfortable numbness of expecting nothing, and found it wanting. Rigby's optimism, in the final season, is hard-won. It is the optimism of a person who has been to the bottom and climbed out, and who knows, from direct experience, that the bottom is not a resting place. It is a trap, and the only way out is up, even when up is harder, even when up is scarier, even when every instinct says to stay down where it is safe. The series finale, a regular epic final battle, aired on January 16, 2017, as a 3-part episode. Each part is 11 minutes long, totaling 33 minutes for the conclusion of an 8-season story. The finale was watched by approximately 1.37 million viewers, making it the most watched episode of the final season. It is the most ambitious thing the show ever attempted, and it earns every second of its ambition. The setup is cosmic in scale. Anti-Pops, the evil twin of Pops, is going to destroy the universe, not threaten it, not endanger a city or a country or a planet, the universe. Everything that exists, every person, every place, every moment that has ever been lived. The stakes are, literally, infinite. And the park crew, these ordinary people who spent 8 seasons doing ordinary jobs and having ordinary problems and growing in ordinary ways, are the ones who have to stop it. This is the show's final metaphor, and it is the most powerful one. The ordinary against the infinite, the small against the enormous. The people who spent their lives feeling insignificant, Rigby most of all, standing between existence and oblivion. And the show does not give them superpowers. It does not elevate them to the level of the threat. It keeps them exactly who they are. Groundskeepers, park workers, regular people. They fight anti-Pops. They fight with everything they have, which is not much. They use the tools of their daily lives, the skills they developed at the park, the relationships they built with each other. And they lose. They cannot beat anti-Pops through force. The universe cannot be saved by hitting the threat hard enough. This is important for Rigby's arc, because hitting things hard enough is the old Rigby's solution, the nihilist's solution. The solution that says if you cannot change the game, break the game. If you cannot win, cheat. If you cannot beat the universe, destroy it before it can judge you. That solution does not work here. The universe cannot be saved by destruction. It can only be saved by love. Pops, the sweetest character in the show, the one who sees the best in everyone, the one who calls everything jolly good, understands this. He does not fight anti-Pops. He hugs him. He wraps his arms around his evil twin, the personification of everything that wants to unmake the world, and he holds on. He makes contact. He chooses connection over combat. And for a moment, just a moment, it works. Anti-Pops hesitates. The hatred falters, the destruction pauses. And then Pops pushes both of them into the sun. The show does not save Pops. There is no twist, no resurrection, no cosmic reset, no deus ex machina that lets the good guys have everything. Pops dies. He dies so that his friends can live. He dies so that the universe can continue. He dies so that every ordinary moment, every cup of coffee and every video game, and every argument about whose turn it is to set up the chairs can keep happening. The park crew watches Pops die. The show holds on their faces, and what you see is not heroic resolve or dramatic grief. What you see is the specific, ordinary pain of people who have lost someone they loved, someone who was kind to them when the world was not, someone who believed in them when they did not believe in themselves, someone who saw the best in a raccoon who slept on a trampoline and a blue jay who could not talk to girls, and a gumball machine who yelled too much, and who treated all of them as if they deserved everything the world had to offer. Pops saw what Eileen sees in Rigby. He saw what was underneath the performance. He saw the person and not the persona, and he gave his life so that person could keep existing, so that Rigby could keep growing, so that the slow, patient, almost invisible process of a scared kid becoming a brave adult could continue without interruption. That is the cost. That is what growth costs. Not just effort and vulnerability and the willingness to be seen. It costs other people's sacrifices. It costs the kindness of people who believed in you before you earned it. It costs the patience of friends and partners and brothers and bosses who could have given up on you and chose not to. Rigby's growth is not a solo achievement. It is the product of a community of people who refused to let him be the thing he told them he was. And the show knows this. The finale is not about Rigby's triumph. It is about the community that made Rigby's triumph possible. It is about the fact that no one grows alone. No one outgrows their nihilism in a vacuum. You outgrow it because someone loved you enough to stand next to you while you were at your worst and wait, patiently, for you to decide to be better. And then the show goes home. And then the show goes forward. The finale flashes forward 25 years. The park crew gathers at a reunion. They are old now. They have lived entire lives between the moment Pops died and this moment in a park that looks the same as it always did. They have done things. They have made choices. They have become, slowly and imperfectly, the people they were always capable of becoming. And Rigby is there, the raccoon who slept on a trampoline, who dropped out of high school, who forged a rejection letter and nearly destroyed the timeline and told himself and everyone else that nothing mattered, is surrounded by his family. He is married to Eileen. They have children. He has a job outside the park. He left. He actually left. The person who was so afraid of change that he sabotaged his own college acceptance to avoid it, got up one day and walked out of the park and into the rest of his life. He went somewhere new. He did something different. He became someone the show did not have time to depict. A person who exists beyond the frame. A person whose best years happened after the story ended. He is, by every measure the show offers, happy. Not the manic, desperate, momentary happiness of winning a video game or eating free snacks. The quiet, sustainable happiness of a person who built a life. A person who tried and kept trying and discovered that the trying was the point all along. The show gives us an image of Rigby teaching his daughter how to play video games. It is a small moment. It is easily missed. Blink and you will pass right through it. But it contains the entire arc, every episode, every section of this video, every moment we have discussed tonight. Because video games were the thing Rigby used to escape. They were the thing he did instead of working, instead of growing, instead of facing the world. They were the arena where he allowed himself to compete, to care, to want things, because the stakes were low enough that wanting was safe. Video games were the container for every ambition Rigby was too scared to express in real life. And now they are the thing he shares with his child. The activity has not changed. Rigby has. What was once an escape is now a connection. What was once avoidance is now presence. What was once a place to hide from the world is now a place to introduce the world to the next generation. What was once nihilism is now love. The daughter does not know what video games meant to her father. She does not know about the trampoline or the forged letter or the years of fear. She just knows that her dad is teaching her how to play, and that he is patient with her, and that he does not yell when she loses, and that he smiles when she wins. She knows, without knowing why she knows it, that this man beside her is someone who understands what it means to struggle with something and keep going. That is the inheritance, not the nihilism, the thing that replaced it. The finale ends with a montage set to David Bowie's Heroes. The song choice is perfect, because Heroes is not a song about heroes. It is a song about ordinary people who, for one day, get to feel like something more than ordinary. We can be heroes, just for one day. That is the promise of regular show. Not that your life will be extraordinary, not that the universe will notice your growth or reward your effort, just that there will be moments, scattered throughout the long, ordinary stretch of your existence, where you feel it, where you feel alive, where the trying pays off, not in money or fame or cosmic significance, but in the simple, enormous feeling of being present in your own life. Each character gets a moment in the montage. Each character's future is shown. Mordecai becomes an artist. He paints. He marries someone the show never introduced, a character the audience never met, which is the show's final, bravest narrative choice, because it says that Mordecai's story does not end with the people we watched him date. It ends with someone new, someone who belongs to the future, not the past. Benson finds peace. Muscle Man raises his family. High Five Ghost finds his path. Skips continues, as he always has, patient and steady and ancient and kind. And then the camera pulls back, further and further, past the park, past the city, past the world, to somewhere else. Somewhere beyond. And Pops is there. He is sitting in a room that looks like heaven, or like home, or like the afterlife, as imagined by a show that always believed the best about people. He is watching a television. On the television is everything we just saw. The montage, the futures, the lives. The television label reads, regular show. Pops ejects the tape. He looks at the camera. He smiles, and he says, jolly good show. That phrase, those 3 words, carry the weight of the entire series, because jolly good show is what Pops says about everything. It is what he says when Mordecai mows the lawn. It is what he says when Rigby breaks a window. It is what he says when the universe is being destroyed, and when breakfast is being served, and when a leaf falls from a tree. It is undiscriminating. It is total. It is the purest form of acceptance the show has ever depicted. And Pops, watching from beyond, watching the lives of his friends unfold, watching Rigby grow and Mordecai paint, and Benson find peace, and everyone, become more than they were, says it one more time, not about a single moment, about the whole thing, about the entire messy, chaotic, beautiful, ordinary, extraordinary story. Jolly good show. The show was always about growing up. Every character in it is navigating the same fundamental question. What do you do when you realize the life you are living is not the life you want? Mordecai's answer involves art and honesty, and learning to be alone before you can be with someone else. Benson's answer involves accepting that control is an illusion, and that the things he manages are less important than the people he manages them with. Skips's answer involves accepting loss, not as a tragedy, but as the cost of an immortal life filled with mortal friends. Muscleman's answer involves love, loud and unashamed and total. Pops's answer involves sacrifice, the willingness to give everything so that everyone else can have anything. And Rigby's answer involves letting go of the story he told himself about who he is. That is the nihilism of Rigby. It was never a philosophy. It was never a worldview. It was never a rational assessment of an indifferent universe. It was a story a scared kid told himself to survive a world that seemed too big and too demanding and too ready to confirm his worst fears about himself. He told himself nothing mattered because believing that nothing mattered was less painful than believing that everything mattered, and he was not equal to it. The story had chapters. The first chapter was childhood, where a younger brother eclipsed him and a father's disappointment settled on his shoulders like snow. The second chapter was high school, where a rejection letter was forged and a future was sacrificed, and a personality was constructed from the wreckage. The third chapter was the park, years of stagnation disguised as contentment, years of walls and performances and jokes that covered the sound of something breaking quietly in the background. The fourth chapter was the cracking, the slow, almost invisible process of those walls developing faults, letting in light from outside, letting in people, letting in the terrifying possibility that things could be different. And the fifth chapter, the one the show spent its final seasons writing, was the rebuilding. Not the construction of a new person, the excavation of the old one, the person who was always there, underneath the noise and the nihilism and the fear, the person who loved his friend enough to give up college, the person who wanted a trucker hat badly enough to eat eggs he was allergic to, the person who went back to school, not because he had to, but because he wanted to be the kind of person who went back to school, the person who danced at prom, years late, in a borrowed suit, with a woman who saw through every wall he ever built. That person was always Rigby. The nihilism was always the lie. The person was always the truth. And the show, across 8 seasons and 244 episodes, tells a different story from the one Rigby told himself. Not a story about the universe having inherent meaning. Regular show is too honest for that. The universe of regular show is chaotic, arbitrary, full of monsters and time voids, and sentient hot dogs that try to kill you. There is no grand plan. There is no cosmic justice. There is no meaning waiting to be discovered. But there are people. There are friends who arm wrestle death to bring you back. There are bosses who lock you in an office and accidentally show you their heart. There are brothers who copy your hairstyle because they think you are cool. There are quiet women who work at coffee shops and see through every wall you build and like what they find on the other side. There are immortal yetis who hand you a wrench and trust you to hold it. There are lollipop-shaped men who call everything jolly good and mean it every single time. There are parks where nothing extraordinary should happen, and everything extraordinary does. The nihilism says none of that matters. Rigby's life says it does. That is not a refutation of nihilism. It is something better. It is something the nihilism never anticipated. It is an acknowledgement that nihilism might be technically true, that the universe might not care, that meaning might not be inherent, that nothing you do will echo in the void, and a demonstration that it does not matter. Because the question was never, does the universe have meaning? The question was always, will you make meaning anyway? Will you get up off the trampoline? Will you go to class? Will you wear the bracelet? Will you give the speech? Will you teach your daughter to play video games in a house you built with a person who loves you, even though the universe never promised you any of it, even though there is no guarantee, even though the void does not care, even though the nihilism is technically, philosophically, cosmically correct? Will you try anyway? Rigby's answer, the answer he spends 8 seasons arriving at, is yes. Not because it is easy, not because it is guaranteed, not because the nihilism was wrong, because the nihilism was not enough. There is something the show understood about its audience that most shows do not. It understood that the people watching it, the people who found comfort in the familiar rhythms of Mordecai and Rigby's bickering and Benson's yelling and Pops's gentle confusion, those people were not just being entertained, they were being accompanied. The show was keeping them company, telling them a story about someone who felt small and scared and stuck, and who eventually found a way through. And the story was not prescriptive. It did not say, here is how you fix yourself. It did not say you should be ashamed of where you are. It did not say growth is easy or quick or guaranteed. It just said, here is someone who was where you are, and here is what happened. Not what should happen, what happened. The show trusted its audience to draw their own conclusions from someone else's story. It trusted that the act of watching Rigby grow, of following him from the trampoline to the podium to the living room with his daughter, would do something quiet and important in the viewer's mind. Not a revelation, not a conversion, just a seed, a small, persistent thought that maybe the nihilism is not the whole story. Maybe there is something on the other side of it. Maybe the walls you built are not the only architecture available to you. That is the gift of regular show. Not its humor, though it is very funny. Not its action, though it is surprisingly exciting. Not its animation, though it is distinctive and confident. The gift is its patience. Its willingness to spend 8 years on a character who does not change quickly. Its refusal to rush the growth or cheapen it with shortcuts. Its insistence that the only honest depiction of a person becoming better is one that takes longer than you want it to, hurts more than you expect it to, and feels, when it finally happens, not like a victory, but like the most natural thing in the world. There is a specific kind of comfort in watching a character you have known for years finally become the person they were always capable of being. It is not the comfort of surprise. You saw it coming. The show showed you the seeds. It showed you the soil. It showed you the rain. And when the growth finally happens, it does not feel like a twist. It feels like an exhale, like something you did not realize you were holding has been set down, like the person you have been watching for hours, the one who slept on a trampoline and lied about his diploma and was afraid of everything, has finally set something down too. That is what Rigby's arc gives you. Not a lesson, not a moral, not a tidy conclusion about the importance of hard work or the dangers of apathy. Something quieter than that. Something closer to recognition. At the recognition that the stories we tell ourselves about who we are, the ones we form in childhood and carry into adulthood and defend with everything we have, are just that, stories. And stories can be rewritten, not easily, not quickly, not without cost, not without the help of people who see through you and love what they find, not without the patience to sit with the rewriting even when it feels like you are erasing yourself. But they can be rewritten. Rigby's nihilism was a story. The show let him tell it for years. It let him believe it. It let the audience believe it. And then, slowly, patiently, with the care of a show that understood its characters better than they understood themselves, it let him put it down. The raccoon stands around 3 feet tall. He was born to parents who loved him imperfectly, in a family where his younger brother was taller and kinder and easier to understand. He became friends with a blue jay in kindergarten by making him laugh. He went to high school and caused trouble and played the saxophone at the wrong time and ruined a volleyball championship and got bullied and barely showed up and never graduated. He got into college and threw the acceptance letter away and forged a rejection for his best friend and dropped out and told himself it did not matter and got a job at a park and slept on a trampoline and played video games and ate junk food and avoided everything real and told everyone, including himself, that none of it mattered. He told himself nothing mattered, and he almost made it true. And then, slowly, so slowly that you could watch every episode and not see the moment it turned, something changed. A quiet woman at a coffee shop looked at him and saw something no one else saw. A boss locked him in a room and showed him a heart that was just as scared as his. A brother told him that the person he had been jealous of had been trying to be like him the whole time. A best friend forgave him for the worst thing he had ever done. A school let him back in. A class did not kick him out. A test came back with a passing grade. A cap and gown fit him, even though he was the smallest person in the gymnasium. A speech came out of his mouth that was simple and true, and not at all brilliant, and exactly right. And then he went to space. And then he fought for the universe. And then he watched a friend die to save everyone he loved. And then he came home. And then he got a job. And then he married Eileen. And then he had children. And then, one ordinary evening, he sat on a couch with a controller in his hand and taught his child how to play the game he used to play to avoid being alive. And the game was the same. And the couch was ordinary. And the evening was nothing special. And he was happy. Genuinely. Quietly. Sustainably happy. The kind of happy that does not need to be loud. The kind that just sits there, steady and warm, like a light left on in a window. That is the whole story. That is the nihilism of Rigby. Not where it started, where it ended. In a house with a wife and children and a video game controller in his hand, passing something down to the next generation. Not the nihilism, the thing that replaced it. The thing that was always underneath it, waiting to be found. Like a person inside a costume, like a truth inside a joke, like a heart inside a wall. The willingness to try. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.